Welcome to the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast with your host, hailing from Kaukauna, Wisconsin, riding a CST Tires SSI Decals Valvoline Back Yamaha YFC 450R, four-time ATV Motocross National Champion, number 25, Cody Jensen.
What's up, everybody?
We're back!
Welcome to the latest edition of the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast, episode 113 of the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast, presented by our title sponsor, CST Tires, in stock and available for purchase today at shop.csttires.com. I'm your host, Cody Jansen, saying hello to our nearly 216,000 monthly Digging Deep listeners in all 103 countries in which you are listening, and this is our Ironman review show. We got a special one for you tonight. We'll break down all the action from Indiana's round 5 of the ATV Motocross National Championship, of course. We'll be joined by two of our favorites who were right at the heart of the action last Saturday, top 5 finishers Brandon Hoag and Nick Gennusa, and then our headliner. After an extended wait, awaiting his agreeance to do this, we have series icon and longtime photographer Ken Hill joining us for a wide-reaching conversation that became way more broad and way more awesome than I even envisioned at the start, right here on the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast. You don't want to miss it. Let's quickly shout out all of our incredible partners. CST Tires, go to shop.csttires.com today. Yamaha, thanks to Blue Crew. Thanks to SSI Decals, reintroducing something we are stoked about, Valvoline back on board after inking a new 2-year agreement with us. So Valvoline back on board, stoked about that. DID Racing Chain, Namura Technologies, Bronco ATV and UTV Components, Launderville Steel Enterprises and Concrete Supply, the financial advice of the Haymauer Financial Group, DP Brakes, Factory 43, Binky's Forever ATC Museum, Impact Solutions, and Manscaped. Get 20% off and free shipping with code DIGGINGDEEP20 at manscaped.com. It was big news when Manscaped announced that they were making the jump into the beard products game, introducing the Beard Hedger Pro Kit from Manscaped. A premium beard sculpting machine, the Beard Hedger allows dudes like you and I to style our beards to exactly our liking with a zoom wheel featuring 20 different built-in lengths. This Pro Kit also includes shampoo, conditioner, oil, and balm, all for your beard, as well as a brush, comb, and scissors. Now you're speaking my language, Manscaped. Get 20% off and free shipping with code DIGGINGDEEP20 at manscaped.com. I say it every week, and this is a topic that will come up in the episode ahead. So rad that Manscaped is continuing to invest in ATV racing as a longtime partner of Digging Deep. You know that outside the industry sponsors don't come every day, so we're stoked on that. But you got to help us keep them in the fold and involved in ATV racing by using our Digging Deep 20 code so they know you enjoy digging deep and what we're all about here. Support all the great companies that support us, and for any products that fall through the cracks, click that Rocky Mountain ATVMC banner on our website to help us out. The 2023 season is in full bloom. Of course, we're already at the midway point somehow, but we both know you still need parts and gear. No matter what off-road gear parts you need, Rocky Mountain ATVMC has you covered. But before you buy, simply click that Rocky Mountain ATVMC banner on our website. By using our specific link, we get a percentage of what you buy on the back end, enabling you to help us out while purchasing the parts you need anyway. And did you know you can buy OEM parts from Rocky Mountain ATVMC as well? Yep, shipped conveniently right to your door. I actually used this earlier this week. I lost a grommet and a couple bolts from my gas tank this past weekend. Ordered them right from Rocky Mountain ATVMC. Showed up on my door 2 days later. It's amazing. So click that Rocky Mountain ATVMC banner at diggingdeepatvmx.com to help us out while satisfying all your gear and parts needs. No new donors to shout out this week, but if you are interested in donating and hearing your name on the show, you can find the Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee donation links on our website. Major thanks to all who have donated, and if you can't donate but you do want to help us out, you can leave us a rating or a review on iTunes and Spotify. That helps us out in a major way. If nothing else, it lets our sponsors, our supporters know that you're passionate about digging deep and want to keep us around long into the future. Now, it's showtime. The 30-second board is up. It's sideways, and the gate is down. Time to dig deep.
Let's go!
All right, guys, we are back with yet another race review podcast. This one for round 5 at Ironman in Crawfordsville, Indiana. I can't believe we're at the midway point of this season already. That's a crazy thing to think about. A little bit different template for this episode, though there is a ton of great content ahead in this podcast. But I sat down and recorded a conversation with Ken Hill where we intended to talk about the races at Crawfordsville, and it just became way more broad, way more awesome than that. So I thought originally, we were going to start this episode right here with Ken Hill and then get into some of our rider conversations. And I thought, let's go over a little bit of what happened at Ironman. We'll go over that and then we'll move into our riders, and then we'll get Ken Hill at the end because we do talk about some Ironman. Ken is awesome. He's been around the sport as the main photographer for the series for 2 decades, basically. But you will enjoy the heck out of that conversation. But being a race review podcast, it probably didn't make sense to put that right here at the beginning. So as the ATV Motocross National Championship Series headed to Ironman Raceway for round 5 of the 2023 season, there was multiple storylines that we were following, multiple riders that were trending upward. We wanted to see what they were going to do at this midway point, a pivotal point in the season here. One thing that is cool about Ironman that I would be remiss to not mention, one is that Crawfordsville, Indiana, home of Ironman Raceway, sits about just 30 minutes south of the historic site of the Battle of Tippy Canoe for any history buffs out there. In November of 1811, Governor William Henry Harrison marched 1,000 men into an Indiana Territory village before destroying it and proclaiming a decisive victory over the opposition, now known as the Battle of Tippy Canoe. The historic site is located just 30 minutes north of Crawfordsville, like I said, home of Ironman Raceway. So much like Harrison and his troops, many of the riders marched into Ironman this past weekend looking to grab a decisive victory. And for a weekend where weather looked like things were going to be a little sketchy, that is not what we got at Ironman this past weekend. The other thing that's really special, here in the Midwest, we have some of the best motocross facilities, motocross tracks that the United States or the world has to offer. Ironman being one of them. It's a beautiful facility. I'm so glad that our ATV Motocross Nationals are back going to this venue and this track, this facility. Obviously, they host the biggest, baddest GNCC event that there is in existence. They host two-wheeled motocross national, of course, at this point. They have since about 2014, I believe. And obviously, the ATV Motocross Nationals. But ATVs specifically have a distinct, profound connection to this track at Ironman. Did you know that the raceway is named after the late GNCC ATV champion Bob Ironman Sloan, an Indiana native who envisioned a GNCC event in his home state? And back in 1995, his dream materialized with the establishment of the Ironman GNCC. As history would have it, Ironman swiftly became a highlight of the GNCC tour. Then in 2014, like I mentioned, Ironman became a stop on the professional motocross tour of American Motocross, the most prestigious motocross tour in the world. And a year later, 2015, is when ATVs would take to the facility for the first time at a motocross race. So Ironman is special, especially to me, especially to a Midwest person. Midwest ATV Nationals just hit different for us. But ATVs specifically have a profound significance with the history of Ironman Raceway. Ironman has been the backdrop for numerous remarkable moments in ATV racing, and most notably, or at least having to be mentioned, is last year's downpour of Ironman 2022, the What If It Rains, Nick Ironman event that we will never forget. But for this year, again, like I said, they were calling for rain. There was chances all weekend long, and that would not be a factor at all. Conditions would be perfect all weekend long. And we'll get into this with some of our guests here tonight. I really liked, we don't have a ton of blue groove on the circuit anymore. I really liked how this track developed. Obviously, we know the big hits of Ironman. We know there's some off-camber corners, there's some technical sections and stuff like that. Big hits, like I said, but I love the way it developed. This is the first Ironman that I can ever remember. It always rains when we go to Ironman. That didn't happen this year. The conditions were freaking perfect. I loved the way the hard pack developed, the blue groove developed. We don't do a ton of that on this series anymore, not like we did years ago. And I thought that was really cool. I love the diversity in the series when you have a weekend like this weekend where it was blue grooved and rock hard and you had to find traction. And now at the next event is going to be the most whooped out, rough track that we're going to see. These riders are going to see all year long. I love that diversity. I love to see, some guys shine on different tracks and in different conditions. Other guys just seemingly flex their muscles on every terrain. And speaking of that, one Joel Hatrick. We had talked about coming into this round that Ironman has always been one of the tracks on the circuit that most favors Joel Hatrick. Though Chad Wienen did come in on a 3-race Ironman win streak, but Joel Hatrick comes out in time qualifying 2 full seconds ahead of the rest of the field, 2 whole seconds and 1 single lap faster than anybody else on the racetrack. I had been prepared to ask Ken to tell Ken that's absolutely absurd, even though we know he's strong on this racetrack. It just seems like I said last week, this guy has multiple seconds in the bag right now. That being said, behind him, things were highly competitive. Joel Hatrick came in at a 158 flat. The next 5 riders, however, came in 2nd through 6th, all came in the 2-minute range. Just about 3/4 of a second separated Nick Gennusa in 2nd from Bryce Ford in 6th. There was tons of jostling going around in that second qualifier, which made it so fun to watch. But ultimately, going into the motos, it was Joel Hatrick 2 seconds faster than the clump of riders, this bunch of riders that were all on top of each other. Nick Gennusa second fastest, which was impressive for him. We'll talk about that with him when he joins us on the show here. Brandon Hogue, third fastest. He's also coming up on the show. Chad Wienen 4th, Jeffrey Rastrelli 5th, Bryce Ford 6th, and the rest of the crew. But those 5 riders were all bunched together, and that was going to be indicative. That was going to be an indicator on just how good the racing was going to be in the day ahead at Ironman. It was awesome. Spoiler alert, Joel Hatrick would lead every lap but one on the day at Ironman, but that first lap of Moto 1 is the one that he did not lead. That one was Brandon Hoag's for the taking after he ripped the whole shot in that first moto. And as we detail the action here from the motos, I'm actually going to use the play-by-play that we do on Facebook. It's something that I think a lot of people have come to enjoy. I have a blast doing it. I'm going to use that for my notes here as we kind of fill you in on the happenings, the play-by-play of what happened in the motos at Ironman. So as I said, Brandon Hogue rips the whole shot in the first moto, and it was Hogue, Hatrick, Rastrelli, Bryce Ford, and Chad Wienen, your top 5 on the opening lap. Bryce Ford would get by Jeffrey Rastrelli for 3rd. Bryce Ford was a staple inside the top 3 for most all of this day. Hatrick would then motor by Hogue and into the lead on lap 2, but Hogue did get a lap led there on the opening lap of the first moto. So it was Hatrick, Hogue, Bryce Ford, Jeffrey Rastrelli, and Chad Wienen on lap 2 of that first moto. Hatrick would stretch his lead. It was 3.5 seconds over Hogue on lap 4. And at that point, Bryce Ford, Jeffrey Rastrelli, and Chad Wienen weren't far behind. Nick Gennusa was in 6th, and he was inching up closer to that pack up 2nd through 5th. Nick Gennusa, by the end of this moto, would be very much in that battle, as we will go on to talk about. So on lap 5, it was Hatrick, Hogue, Bryce Ford, Jeffrey Rastrelli, Chad Wienen, Nick Gennusa, Wesley Wolf, Max Lindquist, Kevin Saar, and Michael Allred making up your top 10. Lindquist got by Wesley Wolf for 7th at that point. We started to see some flashes by Max Lindquist on this day. I think that we're gonna see his program turn around here. And at that point, it seemed like 3rd through 5th was really getting tighter. That was something that stood out to me at that time. And then I noted that Wienen may be readying to make his move here. He was the quickest guy on the racetrack other than the leader. Bryce Ford was really shadowing Brandon Hogue, who was still running 2nd at that time. And next I exclaim, what a pass. Bryce Ford perfectly executed the move and slid up the inside of Hogue for the 2nd spot. That was around that tree corner, if I call it that. What is not the first corner after the whole shot, but that left-hand second corner up around the tree there before launching off that anthill. And Bryce Ford just put together an absolutely picture perfect pass to move into the, not the lead, but into second there ahead of the early leader, Brandon Hogue. And meanwhile, Chad Wienen made the move on Rastrelli for fourth. Wienen was up to third then after that. And before we knew it, Chad Wienen had found his way into third. So it was Hatrick plus 10 seconds over Bryce Ford, Chad Wienen, Brandon Hogue, and Jeffrey Rastrelli. I then wondered what happened to Dane Molander. We would then find out that he went down to the gate with a broken, busted A-arm, not realizing that it was cracked. And it sounded like to me, I believe Debbie Bartosik is the one that weighed in saying that Jody Bateman pointed it out, and thank goodness he did, or that could have been really ugly for Dane Molander. They obviously, rolling to the gate at that point, didn't have the opportunity to change the A-arm out. They would get it changed and fixed for that second moto. We would then see Dane Molander. But getting back to the action, a couple more riders overtook Brandon Hogue late in this one. He was shuffled back to sixth. I believe he had something happen very similar to High Point, where he cut a tire late at High Point, I believe. We'll ask him about that. I was told that he had a bearing carrier, and he hinted at it on his social media page, that he might have had a bearing carrier go bad early in that first moto. So we'll talk to him about that when he joins the show shortly. Nick Gennusa was the rider to watch. That's what I noted in my next post, muscling his way past Jeffrey Rastrelli for fourth. And remember, he had to catch that pack of top five riders. He not only caught them then from a little ways back, but then he started racing through them. Nick Gennusa, going into the second moto, was a rider that I was very much thinking to myself, I had to watch, because he was really, really good in that first moto. So looking forward to talking to him on the show here. But as the 2-lap board came out for Joel Hatrick, he was followed by Bryce Ford, Chad Wienen, Nick Gennusa, and Jeffrey Rastrelli. I noted that Michael Allred and Logan Stanfield were battling for the death at the time for the final spot in the top 10. My next post was Bryce Ford had ridden a masterful race, holding Chad Wienen at bay lap after lap. There was just one lap to go at that point, and Robert Anderson wrote in saying, I spoke too soon, because yes, as Joel Hatrick took the Moto 1 win, Chad Wienen got by Bryce Ford for second with just 2 corners to go. It was great racing action to watch. So again, that first Moto finish was Joel Hatrick out front, plus 13.5 seconds over Chad Wienen, who made the last lap pass on Bryce Ford. Nick Gennusa came in fourth, and Jeffrey Rastrelli fifth. Brandon Hogue, our early leader, would round out sixth. Max Lindquist, we would see him start to round into form here, seventh in that first moto, eighth for Wesley Wolf, Kevin Saar ninth, and Logan Stanfield rounded out the top 10. Before we knew it, revs were up and the gate was down on Moto 2, and it was Jeffrey Rastrelli with the Moto 2 hole shot. Bryce Ford quickly overtook the lead, however, almost instantly. And talk about instantly, that was quick. Joel Hatrick goes from first to third in the Godzilla section. So just a few laps into the race there, Joel Hatrick had already found his way into the lead there, and obviously he was going to set sail. Like I had said earlier, he would lead every lap in this one. So it was Hatrick, Bryce Ford, Rastrelli, Hogue, and Wienen, your top 5 on the opening lap of Moto 2. Salinas went down on the first lap. Aaron Salinas went down on the first lap, so he was playing catch up after being really good on this day. I think he was good in the first moto. He was really good in qualifying, making some waves there. I bet you his pick trend in ATV Fantasy was way, way up. It was a great start for Wesley Wolf in the second moto. He was running 6th early, P6 for him early. Nick Gennusa got up to 6th then. That was my very next post. Nick Gennusa found himself overtaking the 6th spot at the start of lap 3. Brandon Hogue then was pressuring Jeffrey Rastrelli for 4th before Chad Wienen burst by Brandon Hogue for 4th in the section before the finish line. That what used to be kind of a whoop section, sandy section, rough section. Chad Wienen in the second moto, as things got rougher and rougher, started to use that section to his advantage. So on lap 5, it was Hatrick, Bryce Ford, Jeffrey Rastrelli, Chad Wienen, Brandon Hogue, Nick Gennusa, Wesley Wolf, Logan Stanfield, Max Lindquist, and Kevin Saar rounding out your top 10. Wienen was then all over Rastrelli for the 3rd spot. Meanwhile, Joel Hatrick was more than 6+ seconds out in front. And then this is when we see Chad Wienen and Jeffrey Rastrelli absolutely duking it out with each other for fourth. Back and forth they went, seemingly for a whole lap. It was back and forth in one section or one corner. Eventually, Jeffrey Rastrelli would go off the track just momentarily, giving way for Chad Wienen to take the spot for good. So your top five at that point then was Joel Hatrick, Bryce Ford, Chad Wienen, Jeffrey Rastrelli, and Nick Gennusa made up your top five then. So Brandon Hogue again, and I'm excited to talk to him about this, but in this moto, he was all over the place, going forward, going backward, going forward again. And that's what we see here. Brandon Hogue taking the fifth spot back. So Jeffrey Rastrelli, Brandon Hogue, and Nick Gennusa were brawling at that point in the moto. It was so fun to watch. Chad Wienen then had Bryce Ford in his crosshairs. It was getting tight, and Chad Wienen took the runner-up spot from the youngest Ford brother. So the top three at that point was then running in the same position that they were in the first moto: Joel Hatrick, Chad Wienen, and Bryce Ford. In the late stages of this one, Brandon Hogue was standing out. He was racing forward. He was up to fourth then at that point. Jeffrey Rastrelli and Nick Gennusa were left battling for fifth and sixth when Brandon Hogue had dismissed them. Nick Gennusa made the pass then on Rastrelli for fifth, so Jeffrey Rastrelli went from grabbing the whole shot to being outside the top five in this one, not what he wanted. And Max Lindquist was ripping at that point. He was inching up with that group. He was coming from a long way back, kind of shades of Nick Gennusa in that first moto is what we saw from Max Lindquist. Like I said, I think that we're going to see his program really round into form, and all of a sudden Brandon Hogue was all over Bryce Ford. I looked up and that's what I saw. That was for that top three spot. Remember, the 2-lap board was going to come out next time by, and as it came out, Joel Hatrick, who was now 12 seconds out in front, he led the whole pack. Back a little ways, we saw Max Lindquist. He was pressuring Jeffrey Rastrelli for sixth at that point. There was a lap and a half to go, and Max Lindquist had come from a long way back, now pressuring Jeffrey Rastrelli. Bryce Ford was still holding on to the third spot over Brandon Hogue as the white flag came out, but it would not stay that way. Joel Hatrick wins Moto 2, Chad Wienen comes in second, and Brandon Hogue makes the pass on Bryce Ford for third in the final corner. So this seems like the perfect time. Let's get to Brandon Hogue, but quickly giving you that rundown for that second moto, it was Joel Hatrick plus 13.5 over Chad Wienen, Brandon Hogue, Bryce Ford fourth, Nick Gennusa fifth, Jeffrey Rastrelli, Max Lindquist, Wesley Wolf, Logan Stanfield, and Kevin Saar would be your top 10. But the guy making moves at the end of the race was Brandon Hogue, the last corner to get in podium position for that moto. Let's talk to Brandon Hogue. All right, guys, here on the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast, and I'm talking with a guy that we haven't sat down with since the preseason, but one of my favorite dudes to talk to on the podcast here, brought to you by Blenders Eyewear, the official eyewear choice of Digging Deep. Use discount code DiggingDeep20 for 20% off at blenderseyewear.com. Blenders are the perfect track sunglasses. I think they're rad. You can find me in them all the time, but the price point is spot on. So Blenders is the choice. That's Digging Deep 20 at blenderseyewear.com. And with that, let's welcome last year's national number 3 and 2022 Digging Deep Most Improved Pro Award winner, coming off the best weekend of his season so far. It's Mr. Brandon Hogue. What's up, mate? Welcome back to Digging Deep. Thanks for being here, pal.
What's up, mate? Yeah, thanks for having me back on. It's been a little while, so yeah, excited to talk a little bit.
Yeah, I was just telling you that that we had to wait until we had something cool to talk about. So here we are. And buddy, you know, I know you're your toughest critic, right? I know you're hard on yourself. That's something that we touch on the shows here. But how are we feeling? The last 2 races have seemingly been steps in the right direction for you.
Yeah, I'm starting to feel better for sure. I mean, it always kind of sucks, truthfully, when you just you come into the year like with high expectations for yourself and you feel good in training and all that, and then you kind of don't do what you think you're going to do, but that's just part of it. Yeah, there for a while, I was kind of, scratching my head at a lot of stuff, like trying to dig into everything with me and just the way I'm riding and then the bike too and all that stuff. But yeah, we're just figuring stuff out like week by week. And it kind of sucks too, but we're using the races to almost test at the same time. Like, we might, try something with shocks and our test will be the race or whatever, So it's just like another big learning year for me to try to get everything dialed in with the new team. And yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we're already like halfway through and nothing crazy has happened. But I feel like we are doing things to go forward and get in the right direction.
For sure. It seems like things are starting to round into form. They really do. It's been like you're building, one step better, one step better, one step better. And now here we are. So this past weekend, you hole shot the first moto. You lead the first lap of the day there. You're the only dude to lead a lap other than Joel. So, I mean, you got that feather in your cap. Ran inside the top two for more than half of the race there, the first moto. So you can kind of tell me about that if you want. But then what happened late? I heard maybe you lost a bearing carrier as well, something that I had happen this past weekend as well. So tell me about that first moto from the leading early and holding Joel off there for a lap, and then kind of things derailing late in the moto there.
Yeah, I felt great. And once Joel got by me, I kind of just mentally was like, all right, I need to try to figure out if I can at least kind of latch on or stay and figure out where he's super fast compared to us. And it didn't really work. Like, he kind of got me pretty quick, but I still had a decent, I think I was running 2-minute flats. Felt really good, like starting to find good lines and stuff. And then, yeah, I had an issue. It was actually, I think, before halfway. I remember exactly where I felt like I thought at first it was engine related because I was going up Godzilla, and my bike like felt like it completely was about to seize up, basically. So I end up casing Godzilla, and like Godzilla this year was not wide open. It was like you let off at the face and stuff.
Okay.
And I looked down in the air, and like my temp light was on too. So I was like, oh man, this is engine related. I had no idea it was like my rear end, but basically what it felt like was the rear brake was on the whole time, which now it makes sense. I don't know how it didn't like completely lock up anywhere, but like going up Godzilla, it made me just like I said, in the moment, I thought it was engine. And yeah, I'm not capable as a rider to ride what I was doing unless everything's like perfect. So
Of course. Yeah.
yeah, everybody saw what happened, like me pulling a parachute and whatnot. But I mean, yeah, it was, I hate doing that. Like that's the worst feeling as a racer too, especially when I really did feel great. I mean, even in qualifying and stuff, like I just felt great all day. So yeah, obviously doing that, like I was just really pissed off. And then I went back. I was mad because I thought it was the issue, but it turns out it wasn't, a different mechanical. And yeah, so swap that out for the second moto. And yeah, second moto, not as good as a start, but still really, like, it was still top 5, I believe. And then just early on, like the first 3 to 4 laps, I felt like I was just really not riding well, like drifting turns, over drifting. Where I wanted to get on the gas at, I felt like when I did, I just would pop out of the turn and stuff like that. And then, you know how the track was too, like really hard packed. So you had to have a good traction and good feel for the track. But yeah, I ended up like spinning out one time, and I ended up going to 6th, and they kind of got me a little bit too. And I'm like, all right, Hogue, like you're really about to go 6-6.
Hey, can we time out for a second though? Because
yeah.
This day ends up being a 6-3 day, and we'll get into that. But now to know that the bearing carrier wasn't even like at the very end of the moto, to know that it was maybe mid moto ish, like you're really looking at like a podium day, if not for that. I mean, that type of day, it wasn't a 6-3 day without the bearing carrier thing,
Yeah, I mean, not even being cocky, I just feel like that one got away from us.
I'm the one saying it, not you. Like, to know the context of when it happened, it actually makes your day that much stronger is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I agree. I'm happy with how things went outside of that. Like, this happened, like I said, I think it was before I even saw a cross flag on the finish line. So we're talking like 5 laps in, or I don't know. If you go look at lap time, I'm sure.
Yeah, I can't believe you were able to hold on the way you did then, because so this is so fresh on my mind. So I couldn't have told you the last time I had a bearing carrier fail, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I had one
Mhm.
this weekend, same track, same deal, and same thing. Like, but I only dealt with it for like 4 laps, and still by the end,
Yeah.
same exact thing, Brandon. I thought it was the motor at first. And I had so
Yeah.
much drag on the motor. Like, I'm like, man, what the hell is going on? And come to find
Yeah.
out, I started to realize I hit that the wall after the finish line, and I had no brakes. And I'm like, okay, that's
Mhm.
goofy. And then I start to put together that it's a bearing carrier, because in the air I get this giant wobble, right? And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. So I'm trying to jump as little as possible. I'm trying to not give it any gas in the air. And then on the ground, yeah, there'd be, one corner or one straightaway, there might be a bunch of drag, and the next one it would be free depending on how the thing was shifting. So this is all fresh on my mind, that sensation. And I can't imagine still going the speed you were at to finish 6th in the first moto, doing those big jumps and everything with that rear end like that. Like you said, I was scared that all of a sudden mine was just going to lock all the way up, because that's exactly what happened when I came in. I don't know if that's what happened to yours, but it seized up right away as soon as it cooled down. And yeah, man, to think you were going that fast with that going on, like that's nuts to me.
Well, and I also heard the noise. Like, once again, I thought it was
Sure.
internal. Like, dude, like the whole back half of the race, I'm just shaking my head in the air. Like, I'm so
Yeah.
pissed.
Right.
Like I'd hit, and yeah, just how you explained, sometimes it felt like it all of a sudden was
Mhm.
fine. And then like random spots, it'll feel like someone stomped on your rear
Exactly.
brake.
Yep.
Like, it must have just been something catching, or
Yeah.
whatever. But, and you know how it is as a racer. Like, for me, I cannot do what I want to do unless stuff's pretty much freaking perfect. Like, I could deal with something small, but like, yeah, something like that, I'm not good enough to do that. Maybe Joel could do it, but I'm just not capable,
So and people listen to these shows, right, that obviously aren't at your level, or maybe don't even ride anymore or whatever, but describe to them, I mean, it feels like when you have something like that going on, because your brain is going a million miles an hour, you're trying to figure out what's going on, you're pissed, get all this going on, it feels like absolute chaos when this is happening, right? Like it in
Yeah.
other, like what you're describing, things need to be perfect for you to be at that level, to go podium speed and whatever. And you're the farthest thing from that. When you're dealing with something, you don't know exactly what it is, you're angry, like it again, chaos.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I told everybody I almost pulled off, and right when it happened, I almost thought about like just coming down the hill on the side of the
Mhm.
track. But then I'd be like, well, I didn't know. You know what
I
I mean?
do.
It's
Yeah.
just, but yeah, I hate even having to mentally get off the subject of like you're attacking the
Mhm.
track, and like you don't want to think about nothing when you're racing. So it's
Yeah.
like the second you start, it's already game
Right.
over. Like, it doesn't matter if it's, or
Mhm.
but yeah, just
Tough.
frustrating
Tough
as
deal.
heck.
And like I said, I wouldn't have been able to talk my way through this with you had it not been so fresh on my mind as well. And I remember, so I came in and I was explaining to my wife what happened, and I'm like, man, like I was so angry, because I'm like, if it was practice, I'd just pull off and I wouldn't destroy all my stuff.
Yeah.
And then here goes an axle, and obviously a bearing carrier, and the whole brake caliper got destroyed, and the brake
Yeah.
hub, and obviously the rotor, all this, just all that, it ruined everything. And I'm like, I know that that's
Yeah.
not something you're thinking about, but for me, I'm like, man, like why right now,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's like, even for me,
Yeah.
I haven't raced any races until this one this year. I'm not in it for points or whatever, obviously, but just having some fun. But like, as a competitor, it's not like you're going to pull off, because you're like, man, what if I would have made it? And like, for me,
Yeah.
again, not, I can't compare racing the 25 plus class to the pro class, but was able to limp it home for second. And shoot, I was thinking that was a feat, but for you to hold on to sixth, dealing with all that, man, that's freaking nuts. And kind of like High Point, right? Because at High Point, I was told that you cut a tire late in the race there, so it's like 2 races in a row now, late in the race, you're dealing with something.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I got some feedback about High Point, and it's like, okay, like, yeah, I'm gonna go. I passed Chad, and I'm going forward. I see Jeff in front of me, and it's like even easier as a racer when you see someone.
Of course.
And like, yeah, like, yeah, I mean, I had some comments and stuff, but people don't see the shit at the track. Like,
Oh, okay. It took me a second to realize what we were talking about here. But yes, you were,
yeah,
and I remember posting, you were the dude moving forward in that race. Like,
yeah,
I love to see it. I literally posted, this is the Brandon Hogue we've been waiting to see. So I think that, and then people started commenting, it was a cut tire. It was a cut tire. It was a cut tire. So
yeah,
that made so much sense when I learned that, but obviously a heartbreaker to know that these last two races where you're clearly your best, you're building, yet you were still dealing with those things at the same time, which I guess in the end, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe to know that you had your best races of the year and dealt with, those two, kind of strikes of adversity. Maybe that means when it all comes together here, it's really going to come together.
yeah. I think that High Point Moto 1 was like one of the coolest races for me because we were well past halfway when Chad got Max, and Max was in front of me. So I like just, mentally, I'm like, all right, I need to get Max right now if I have any shot at even like finishing right behind Chad. And then I pass Max and I start to catch Chad, and I'm like, all right, like, Hogue, if you're gonna do anything wild, like, do it now. Like I was super close going up
Yeah.
the quad and stuff, and then I'm like that was the first time in my career where I actually was like full sends to get around him. And then once I did, it was like, now, like I wanted to, I wanted to go wild. I wanted to go back up to where Jeff was in that moto. But anyway, just that's what happens when you're just like feeling good. And
I love it.
It's a cool feeling. Yeah.
Well, things are coming together. So now, rewind back to talking about Ironman, talking about that second moto. In the second moto there, it seemed to me like the battle was on. I couldn't take my eyes off you and where you guys, the dudes you were battling with were. I mean, back and forth you guys went 4, 5, 6, 5, 4. I mean, you were all over the place, like you said. So you said you focused yourself, you started moving forward again, and ultimately you move into third on the last lap, last corner. So tell me about that battle and what that moto was like, and then obviously what it was like to make that pass moments from the finish line there. I mean, those are the types of things that you'll remember for probably your whole career. I know it didn't mean a podium overall for the day, but those last lap, last corner passes, I just can remember a few of them from my career. And it's like, man, those are really special feelings to know you had to make it happen and you did.
Yeah. The whole time on the track, when like I said, I was in sixth, getting gapped, and I'm like, okay, Hogue, you're going 6-6. This is awesome. Like, you might as well go hit golf clubs. Like, you know what I mean? And
Right. Yeah.
but I just thought about, like, I really want to make Luke and Emily proud, which are the team I ride for. Like, they do so much for me, and it's like they're standing on the fence watching this happen. And like it's more of, dude, just when you have stuff like that to think about too, it makes you in the moment like really want to get pushing again. And then I passed Nick and Jeff, like, kind of like not back to back, but it wasn't like too far away from each other. And then I'm like, wow, okay, now I'm fourth, and Bryce had a little gap at that point, but I just was feeling really good. Like, and I had stuff to prove that I wasn't like, I'm not just pulling parachutes. Like, so it just, all those clicked. And then I really love racing all them guys. Like, it was fun racing. You have to get a little creative and go out in and stuff. And then like Bryce too. I really love racing Bryce because he's like, me and him ride very similar. Like, we think the same. We're both aggressive when we need to be. And we both are young, and like, there's just a good rivalry there that, when I'm behind him, like, it almost makes me push more, just because I know me and him both are like, we're doing everything we can in that moment to come out on top of like each other. So just those final laps, like, I just had pretty good lines and was feeling good. And like, he did everything right to seriously protect the line at the last lap. Like, he did exactly what I would have done. That's why, I mean, I couldn't, he did it perfect. It's just, The very last second, I went outside, and I think he thought I was going to go like stay outside.
Okay.
And I just pulled the clutch in, like cut in, and just gave it gas. And there was a little gap to shoot. And I just shot it. And like, yeah, I mean, it was just one of those things that it worked out perfectly there. But like, yeah, those feelings are, I mean, when I was done, it felt like I podiumed, even though I knew the whole time I wasn't going for a podium, but it was a good feeling I hope to make, Luke and Emily proud. And
Absolutely, man.
It just was a good feeling all around, even when you're not on the box.
Well, and to me, like I said earlier, I mean, I know you want overall podiums, obviously, but even a moto podium feels like a good, healthy step in the right direction at this point, let alone to do it in the last corner, let alone to, feel like you set the guy up and everything. And I figured that's how you did it. Just looking at the pictures, I figured that you made him think you were going to stay outside and cut in. And that was a hot line no matter what was going
Correct.
on. Like that was a really good line all weekend long, was to, start high, cut in. That seemed really fast. And I figured that's how you set that thing up. So again, probably a moment that you're not going to forget. And obviously, he wanted to hold on to that thing. When somebody wants it as bad as you do, I mean, that makes it that much more special. And, I know he's feeling it too. I can see kind of between the lines on the stuff he's posting, that he wants to be better, and that he's not going to make those same mistakes again in these things. So yeah, you earned that one, man. You ripped it away from him. And again, like a moto podium is a step in the right direction for sure.
Yeah. Like I was touching on with Bryce, like we can have our big rivalry and stuff, but no matter what, like I know, he's very, very much like me in the sense of the competitiveness is there. And that's what I really like. Like it's same with, Jeff and Gennusa too. Like,
yep.
I love that. If without it, it would suck. Like, it's just cool to have that. And, one weekend I might get smashed in, and then the next weekend someone might get smashed in. It's like, it's not like you're always staying on top. Like there's always, if I'm on top, then someone's going to be, trying to take me off the next weekend or vice versa. And we're all like pushing each other at the same time to try to close the gap with Chad and Joel and stuff. So it's like, yeah, the class is just in a really dang good spot for sure.
The class is amazing right now. It makes the fan experience, the watching the races experience really fun. It makes ATV fantasy an absolute blast. And it's been awesome to see so far. You don't know what's going to happen going into these race weekends, which is really, really fun. And now kind of the focus shifts to Sunset Ridge. But the one thing like that I think back to last year when I think of Sunset Ridge is, don't forget the fact that this is like when your strong 2022 season really rounded into form. I mean, there was some adversity early, obviously, and that run of, I know you didn't win Ironman, you almost did last year, but you finished on the box at Ironman. You put together one of the best days of your career at Sunset Ridge last year. So just kind of a reminder that this is when things really turned for the better last year. And I'm just wondering if we can't mimic that again this season. You can't mimic that again this season, because I literally remember you saying on the podium, I believe at Sunset Ridge, that you're hoping, you're ready to turn this season around. And now, like when we think back on how strong your season was, it's weird to think of it that way, but you just got hot late. And I'm just wondering, we're seeing you trend in the right direction. You're moving up the ranks. And now I'm wondering if you can't mimic exactly what you did last year again and get hot at the right time, go to some tracks that you're really good at. And yeah, man, like it seems like almost like 2022 all over again.
Yeah, I don't know why it's like back half of the year thing. But yeah, I'm hoping to. I do definitely remember Sunset last year, and I just watched the film yesterday.
I watched it this morning.
It was it was a good weekend for me. And we'll see how the riding is and qualifying. And like, I'm gonna do the same things I did to like I did last year, and try to just start flowing right away and getting a good space for the day. And I would really love to start, at least get my first podium for the year would be super nice. But
podium's coming. It's got to be coming, right? Like it's got to be getting close.
I hope one race this year I podium. I'll just say that. So yeah,
it's coming, Brandon. It has to. Will be the first podium for you on a Yamaha, right? We didn't get any
yep.
podiums on the TDR Yamaha, right?
Yeah, no, none on the TDR Yamaha. So yeah, first Yamaha podium.
That's
But
what you're on the hunt for. And I just remember last year being so impressed with your speed. And specifically, I remember literally telling you this, it might have been on the show, saying that I was so impressed with your corner speed. Like your roll speed at Walnut last year was extremely impressive to me. Like you were in your own league outside the top two last year all day long at Sunset Ridge. I mean, that was kind of your coming out party on being the guy for the third spot. Plus, it's got to feel kind of good. I mean, that's got to be the closest race to home, I would think, is Sunset Ridge as well. So that has to be a little extra oomph as well, I would think.
yeah, I had and Sky Volkamer too. Like me and him used to be really like pretty much best friends, and he always goes to that one, and
okay,
he's always there like videoing everybody for me and telling me lines and like having kind of just that home feel too. Like, yeah, it's not Nebraska, but it's only 5 hours, 20 minutes from the house. So it's like,
okay,
it is kind of I would consider my home track, but, yeah, we used to go there a lot when we were younger, like 10, 11, 12 years old and stuff. And yeah, and that's funny. I used to say it was my worst track ever. Like I used to suck there. And then last year it was a really good one. So yeah, I like the track. They do an awesome job, and I'm hoping to have a good weekend there and keep moving forward.
For sure. I talked to Bob Pistol from Sunset Ridge this past weekend at Crawfordsville. And it was shortly after you guys finished up your second moto. And he said to me, man, the boys better be ready for a rough one at my track, because this track here is way too smooth. So I think that we can expect, I mean, obviously we know Ironman and Sunset Ridge are polar opposites when it comes to ground makeup and roughness.
Yeah.
But I wonder if Bob's not going to somehow make it like till it extra deep, make it extra rough or something, because he said we all got off too easy at Ironman.
Yeah. I mean, I'm probably expecting the worst for sure. And that track usually does get pretty rough in general.
It gets blown out, man.
So
yeah.
If you could just find a flow there, and I'm looking, the temp's like 86 Saturday, so it's gonna be a absolute sufferfest. But that's just what we all sign up for.
so and are you back in Nebraska now? Is that where
I'm in Nebraska? Yep.
What is I think I saw you riding like your track back there,
like
the one from when you were a kid, but is that where you're primarily riding, or what's the scoop with that?
Yep. Me and my brother got my track running again and made it pretty sick.
Yeah, it looks good.
It's literally been like, I love it at home. I love it. Like I love being able to, my track's like, it's like 6 miles from my house. So, I mean, it's just so nice to be able to wake up, do your stuff, you go to the track, and I'm with my brother too. So it's even more fun that way. And
for sure,
like yesterday, we just did motos together, and me and him are almost the exact same speed at this track, because it's like, he needs to have a nice rut everywhere, blah, blah, blah. But it's just like what I wish I would have had years ago is what I have right now. And we have a skid loader out there. Like my grandparents are all in on us making it bigger or whatever we need to do too. So it's like,
nice,
dude, like I love it here for sure.
That's awesome. I was hoping that you were in Nebraska, because then you really get this home race feel, right? Like it is actually close to home. Like you said, it's 5 hours or whatever it is. If you're coming from, PA or Florida or whatever, you don't get necessarily that home race feel, but being that you're close to home right now, and I'm sure your family loves that you're back in Nebraska, right? They don't get to see you a ton. You're gone a lot, whether it's the preseason, whether it's during the season, you got a lot going on. I think that they probably love that. And it seems, like I said, that's just another thing that's going right for you right now. Everybody's got to travel a long ass way to get to Sunset Ridge, and you don't got to travel that far.
Yeah. It's sweet for sure. And just being able to not live out of a suitcase every time is like a really, I don't know. I guess as I get older, I get more soft. So it's just like, it feels good to not live in a suitcase all the time. Like that kind of stuff gets a little old. But I think it's just because I've been doing it all the time. So
I
Yeah,
hear you.
it's been awesome.
So yeah, like I said, it really does feel like the weekend that it all comes together might be on the horizon here. And it sure seems like you're well on your way there. All good with it. You mentioned Luke and Emily, all good with the team, I'm assuming, and the Yamaha switch. You still liking that whole deal? And what can you tell me about that?
Yep, I'm absolutely loving it. Like, they are doing so much for me. It's insane. That's why it sucks even more. Like, I think it sucks more to like not be doing good for them than it does for me. Like, I could care less about, if you only let yourself down or whatever, but when you're letting down, like, they believed in me, jumped in on me, and we
Yeah.
always talk about podiums, and like I haven't even delivered that. It just yeah, anyway, back to them. Like, they're so awesome. We joke about it all the time. Like, they act like they adopted me. Like, I mean, even Luke will prep my stuff and be more involved in like my gate drop and stuff than like Emily's taking care of the kids. And it's like,
Sure.
it's literally like they just adopted me. Like, it's nuts. So, they're just great people. Like, they're do everything they can to make sure I'm happy. And Luke calls me all the time to make sure I'm good. And it's like,
Nice.
yeah, they're doing a really good job of making sure I have everything I need. And yeah, the Yamaha switch too, like, I absolutely love it. Even though the results aren't there, I would never go back. Like, I'm still on the same practice bike from the beginning of Florida. I love the bike. We keep making it better and better pretty much every week, which is sick. And yeah, I just feel like we could develop it to where, I mean, with the Honda, I felt like it was pretty plateaued on what we could do. And this thing, we're still learning. Like it's like we're learning something all the time on, everything. So it's just, yeah, it's been a great year outside of just results on paper.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it. I think so. This probably happens. I really try hard not to like talk about my racing on my show here because nobody probably cares. But it happens a little bit with you just because, we're buddies or whatever. But so I think I said already that I hadn't ridden since last August until Friday practice at Ironman. And it hit me almost instantly again how good the Yamaha is because I'm like, man, I can put this thing wherever I want. It hooks up wherever I want. It turns on a freaking dime. Like
Yeah.
it just blows me away how good these things are. And
Yeah.
we had been talking, I think, before we hit record, that they just keep, like you just said, they keep figuring them out more and more. The motors are getting stronger. Everybody's, with the suspension stuff, it just getting more and more figured out. It's amazing. Like they are, and I saw somebody commenting on something, talking about hybrids and how they would compare online or whatever. And somebody had made the comment, and I would give them credit if I remembered who it was, had said the way that these Yamahas that you guys are riding in the pro class, at the front of the pro class, they're so figured out right now that I don't think that they could. I mean, yes, the hybrid's a great quad, but I don't think it's like head and shoulders better than the Yamaha. I don't think that.
Yeah. I mean, these things are in their prime. Like, I would argue that these things are the best we're probably going to have for a long time as far as where the development is. And
well,
I mean, it would take
like,
some yeah.
It's not like somebody's just going to all of a sudden come out with a quad that squashes the YFZ,
Yeah. I mean, even with like all the Walsh components and the way that the linkages are, and just there's just homework into that bike that
so much.
I mean, it would take, I would pick this thing over, I'd say, any bike. And I mean, like I've even said about the hybrid rule and stuff, like I really don't care if they allow them or not, because I'd stick to a YFZ.
Exactly. Yep.
So like, to me, I always said let them, because I don't think it's going to go like, just because someone's on a different, like a dirt bike engine, well, that's going to throw off handling a little bit. And I'd say handling matters more. So it's like, yeah, these things are as good as they've been for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. And like you said, they're so good. They're so figured out right now. I don't think that if you let a hybrid into the class, it would change anything. I really don't believe that. And yeah, like I said, they're just so good right now. I think that, they just keep getting better. You mentioned the rear end, the linkage, all this stuff. Like people just keep making strides with these things. It's been really impressive. And like, is the simple fact that they're just really fun to ride.
Yeah.
I watch you guys, specifically you, right? But I watch, you guys like have the bike control that you do. And it seems like it's even on another level than the Honda. You have that much more bike control. This quad is an extension of you that much more than even what we saw before. And it just speaks to how good these things are, how well you're working with them, how it, like I said, it feels like an extension of you as a rider. And that's a cool thing to see.
Yeah. Yeah. It's awesome. And also seeing what Joel and Chad have done to their machines. Like
Yeah.
those things are so stable and so like just perfect, dude. Like I aspire to that, which, mine is too, but I'm just saying like, it's cool to see people doing work in the off season of machines and then it paying off at the track. It's pretty sick.
Well, and to think, that the YFZ's been around for a while. Chad obviously hopped on one in 2012. Thomas was riding one prior to that, right? But Brett made the comment to me, Brett Musig had made the comment to me that, these Yamahas are a lot different than they were when he rode under Chad's tent, years ago in 2013 or 14 or whatever that would have been, that he said that they don't even compare anymore. And so it kind of speaks to all the strides that have been made with the machine and how they continue to hone in on that thing. And the other thing, I guess that comes to mind there before we get out of here is with Brett. Obviously you rode for Music Racing last year. It's what stands out to me, Brandon, is how passionately those guys are, that whole team and family and stuff are still, monitoring you, cheering for you, pulling for you, screaming on the fences. Like that's pretty freaking cool. Like you obviously decided to go a different direction with your race program in your career, but that, like, to have them be still that invested and care that much about you, man, credit to you. Cause that speaks to you as a not even a rider. It speaks to you as a person.
Yeah. I think it's like, to me in racing, that's one of the best things is if you can keep, like I didn't beg them guys to like if you can keep relationships, even when you have to go different routes, like that's the biggest win. And with them, me and Brett, I mean, we still talk at the racetrack and stuff, and he'll tell me like, just like I'm pretty much under his tent, so it's like, it's so cool to be able to have, like I hate burning bridges and stuff. And that was one thing I made clear with them is like, I don't like, this is, everything I wanted to keep the same. Like they're awesome with that. Like it is cool. I like the way you put it on. Just, we're still good vibes between both of us. I mean, even last round, like we were parked pretty close to each other, and like, we were just all so friendly, and it's still just like, like we just want what's best. Like I want Brett to go win, and like it's just cool. Like we all have that same still desire, and them guys they're awesome people.
Well, and I said before that I was really torn when I learned about this deal at the end of last year, because I thought it was such a great fit, and I really like you, and I really like those guys. And I know obviously Brett really enjoyed you guys were really successful together. Everything went swimmingly, but I got the feeling like, because Brett wasn't even really going to have a team anymore then. Like he all of a sudden like lost, because he wasn't just going to have some rider ride for him. And so the other part that stands out to me is I'm really glad that he found somebody who, man, Kevin Saar seems like an awesome dude. And I don't know if, it's harder to watch just one rider in the pro class, even if you're Joel Hatrick. There's so much going on. You want to monitor it all. So I didn't get to watch him exclusively in the pro class on Saturday, but in Pro-Am on Sunday, I came away so impressed with Kevin Saar and how, like, his abilities, and man, he was really, really impressive. So I guess where I'm going with that is not only, wanting to touch on Kevin Saar and love having him here and all those things, but the fact that Brett found somebody to somewhat fill your void. I know he's not, Kevin Sarr's not on the podium yet. He's not in the top 5 yet. He's not even really been in that realm yet, but to have somebody who seems like a genuinely good dude and really appreciative of everything that's going on, everything that the music racing and repair team is doing for him. I'm just glad that they found somebody to fill that spot, because I didn't want to see the music racing and repair team go away because you went in a different direction, if that makes sense. I'm glad like it seemingly worked out for everybody.
Yeah, I think Kevin was he was a great pick. I knew that the first time I rode with him, when I was kind of being like, not.
Oh yeah. We talked about that on the show right after you had ridden with those guys down there.
Yeah. Yeah. I rode with him in Florida at Deckers. And
yeah,
this one day specifically though, like I was going as fast as I could go, and I was faster than him. And like early on, I rode behind him and I passed him, and I'm like, man, that probably was like, I should not do that. That's just rude. But he took it like he took it like I wish I would have took it. Like he was like, I could tell right away. He wanted to know why. Like why am I getting pulled away from, and I want to get faster now. And then we did a moto later that day, and I was going as fast as I could go, and it was a full-blown 20. And like I pulled away, but it's not by much,
Sure.
And that's when I'm like, okay, this kid he's in shape, and he's like, that's like Brett picked the right dude for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm glad he's having success in Pro-Am, like I saw. And yeah, I'm glad that they're together, and it was a good pick in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the awesome addition to the series. Awesome. Like I said, it's cool that everything seems to be working out for everybody, because I was scared that it wasn't going to work out for anybody. Music racing might not be there. And like I said to you, I was a little worried, because we've all been, every one of us that's been at the pro or near pro in the sport has been promised some things at some point, and maybe it hasn't happened. So I'm glad that wasn't the case or whatever with your new team there, and just glad it's working out for everybody. But pal, I've been itching to chat with you, itching to kind of counting down the moments, right, to having something awesome to talk about here on the show. Obviously not quite the overall podium, but a moto podium, and I think that overall podium is getting damn close as we kind of shift our focus to Sunset Ridge. So I wouldn't be surprised if it all comes together there. And just appreciate your time tonight. Appreciate you telling us about your season, everything you got going on. I always come away from these conversations feeling so good. So appreciate you giving me some of your time, and yeah, man, I love having you on the show. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, man. Thanks for wanting to have me. We'll keep working and hopefully give you some stuff to talk about eventually, but yeah, we'll just keep working.
Yeah, you've given us plenty to talk about all year long, whether it was you were running second at Daytona, right? You were flashing last weekend, flashing this weekend. So we're always going to cover you. We love Brandon Hogue here at Digging Deep. You know that. So always pulling for you, pal. I think every time I say your name on the show, no matter who I'm talking to, I think about little Brandon Hogue, hanging out on the futon in my parents' basement, staying with us. And I love it. I couldn't be prouder of where you are as a rider and a person, and everything that you got going on, pal. I'm always going to be bonded to you. I really am. So I just love seeing your success, and man, I'll be your biggest cheerleader when you do get back on the podium, because we know it's coming.
Hey, dude, I appreciate you, man. Thank you. I feel the same for you. And yeah, I appreciate all the talks, and we'll have to keep in touch probably more often and just talk about racing or whatever.
I love it, man. I can't get enough of it. So I'll let you go, but thank you again for your time, pal. I appreciate it so much, and we'll see you next weekend. Okay.
Alrighty, man. We'll see you.
You're the man. That's Brandon Hogue joining us on the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast, following his best showing of the season thus far. Brought to you by Blenders Eyewear. Use discount code DiggingDeep20 at blenderseyewear.com. Thanks so much, mate. Have a good night.
Yep. See you.
We'll get right back to the show, but now a word from our sponsors. And thank you for listening to these ads. Without these great companies, none of this would be possible. Show your support for the people who support us. The official tire choice of Digging Deep, CST tires are the choice of ATV racing's elite on the track, in the woods, and every other terrain. CST tires swept the ATV racing world in 2022 as Joel Hatrick, Bryson Neal, and Bo Barron rode their Pulse MXR and Pulse HT tires to an ATV Pro Motocross title, GNCC XC1 Pro title, and 10th ATV Pro Works Racing title, respectively. Led by champion Joel Hatrick and podium contenders Bryce Ford, Jeffrey Rastrelli, and Nick Gennusa, CST's Pulse MXR tire is the most trusted tire in ATV motocross today. Available in soft and standard compounds, the Pulse MXR offers the highest level of traction, most predictable cornering, and superior wear characteristics when compared to the competition. And did I mention they have a contingency program as well? Visit shop.csttires.com to join the CST takeover today, or prepare to be beat by someone who did. The best of the best choose CST. Do you? You know we're Team Blue Crew here at the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast, as the Yamaha YFZ450R is the official ATV of Digging Deep. In a move started by 8-time ATVMX Pro Class National Champion Chad Wienen, who with his next championship will become the winningest champion in ATV motocross history, we are living in ATV racing's YFZ450R era. Alongside Wienen, 7-time GNCC XC1 Pro ATV National Champion Walker Fowler welcomed a pair of new champions to the Yamaha Champions Club, as the podium-proven Yamaha YFZ450R proved to be the winning choice for Joel Hatrick and Bryson Neal. This unprecedented success for the YFZ450R, its unrivaled quality and performance, and the clear fact that Yamaha is the leading OEM supporter of ATV racing has resulted in a complete Yamaha takeover within the sport quad market. Evident by the continuation of Yamaha's Blue Crew Racer Support Program, Yamaha riders will once again cash in on payout and prize opportunities in 2023, including a chance to win a brand new YFZ450R. For more info, head over to YamahaBlueCrew.com. Follow Yamaha Outdoors, as well as the new Blue Crew official channel on social media, and check out Yamaha's full proven off-road lineup at YamahaOutdoors.com today. SSI Decals, your way. SSI Decals sets the standard with the best looking decals, graphics kits, and vinyl wraps in the industry. Established in 1947, SSI took shape as an offshoot of their parent company by doing a little work for local pro Chad Wienen. Nearly 2 decades later, and fueled by a passion for ATVs, the company has flourished into one of ATV Moto's most recognized brands. From ATV Motocross, SSI has expanded into graphics and design work for top racers in GNCC, Works Racing, Pro Motocross and Supercross, Off-Road, and more, headlined by 8-time world champion top fuel drag racer Clay Milligan. Whether your project is big or small, SSI Decals will make your identity stick. Get started today at SSIDecals.com and use code DIGGINGDEEP10 for 10% off at checkout. Things are about to get sick. The Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast is brought to you in part by DID and their wide range of championship-winning chains. From the street to the track and everywhere in between, DID chains are designed to give you the optimal riding experience with great performance and increased chain life. Consistent to the core, pick up your box of reliability today. DID, what drives you?
We are proud to be partnered with Namura Technologies. For over 20 years, Namura has pushed the limit of value and reliability in the ATV and side-by-side market. Covering more applications than anyone in the industry, Namura's full line of cast and forged pistons, connecting rods, gasket kits, and industry-leading top-end repair kits and more have led to higher overall engine performance for your machine. Visit your local dealer or online at www.namura.com and follow along on Instagram for giveaways and exciting new products in 2023. Namura Technologies, your one-stop shop engine component supplier.
We are pleased to be partnered with Bronco ATV and UTV Components. Bronco has been an industry leader in replacement hard parts and accessories for all makes and models for over 15 years. With a catalog that includes a full line of electrical components, engine internals and cylinders, shock and suspension parts, winches, clutch kits, valves, carb kits, bearing kits, and drive chain parts, Bronco is your hard part source for whatever you need for whatever you ride. Available exclusively through distributors around the world, visit your local dealer or online at broncoatv.com.
For over 150 years, Valvoline has been dedicated to constant improvement and innovation across all disciplines of racing. As a proud member of Team Valvoline for nearly a decade, I have witnessed their unwavering commitment to pushing the boundaries of performance. Valvoline has sponsored some of the greatest names in motorsports, solidifying their position as a powerhouse in the industry. Being a part of this historically great team has been an incredible privilege. When it comes to my equipment, whether it's my daily commuting vehicles, race quads, or anything in between, I trust nothing but Valvoline. Their range of products and lubricants consistently delivers increased horsepower, durability, and engine life. While Valvoline's latest innovation, the Valvoline Ultimate Powersports line, stands out as a true game changer, their entire lineup deserves recognition. With the Ultimate Powersports, I've experienced unparalleled performance on the track and beyond. Its advanced synthetic formula is specifically engineered for high-performance powersports vehicles, delivering unmatched power, protection, and endurance. Upgrade to Valvoline today and experience the difference for yourself. Visit ValvolineGlobal.com to explore their full range of products, including the groundbreaking Valvoline Ultimate Powersports. Discover why Valvoline has been a trusted name in the racing industry for over a century. All right, guys, back here on the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast to continue our coverage of Ironman. Awesome to hear from Brandon Hogue there. He's always so good on the show. I do really think that his program is trending upward, but we ended with that pass of his for the top 3 spot, not for the podium, before the Moto. What I do want to go over is the overalls for Ironman. As we look at the list here, Joel Hatrick, of course, goes 1-1. This is his 4th overall win of the season at 5 tries for him, obviously stretching his points lead at this point. Chad Wienen overcomes some mediocre starts, I would say, to go 2-2 on the day, 2nd overall for him. He's not chipping away at Joel Hatrick's points lead, but he is inching his way up the standings after that 4-point day, I think it was, at round 2 when he broke his collarbone. So credit to him. We know that, I got to believe, especially after some conversations I had with Chad at Ironman, that thing still doesn't feel great, especially with all the big hits at Ironman. So definitely, just as much as I don't want to take for granted how freaking incredible Joel Hatrick is right now, how locked in he is right now. He's in Ricky Carmichael 24-0 form right now. Same with Chad Wienen. I don't want to just look over the fact that he's battling through something that most people wouldn't even be riding with yet. So 2nd for Chad Wienen there, 2-2 scores. Bryce Ford, if each moto was 1 lap less, it would have been a 2-3 day for him instead of a 3-4 day. But either way, it's good enough for the top 3 spot. Podium position for him, I believe the 12th podium of his career. Yes, confirmed 12th podium finish for Bryce Ford. Brandon Hogue, we just heard from him, 4th overall on the day. 6.3 moto scores for him was good enough for 4th overall. Obviously, like I said, trending upward. And like I said to him, Sunset Ridge, about this time last year is when things really started to come together. So he's going to very much be a rider to watch next weekend at Sunset Ridge, where he would love to mimic that 3-3 day he had a year ago to get that first podium of his season here, which would be the first podium for him on a Yamaha, which we're anxiously awaiting that. Rounding out the top 5, this next guy also joining us on the show is Nick Gennusa. And maybe let's get to him right now. Let's get Nick in here right now. We'll talk to him and then we'll come back to finish our coverage of this event before kicking it over to Ken Hill in a can't miss segment. Honestly, you are not going to want to miss it. That segment with Ken Hill was so much fun to record. But first, let's talk to Nick Gennusa, top 5 at Ironman. All right, guys, this next guest is one of my favorites. Every time he joins the podcast, I've really come to enjoy this guy. Brought to you by our friends at CST Tires and their industry-leading Pulse MXR tires, available in soft and standard compounds today at shop.csttires.com. Say hello to one of the fellow original believers in CST Tires, coming off a couple strong weekends back-to-back for this guy. It's Mr. Nick Gennusa. Nick, welcome back to the podcast, man. Thanks so much for being here.
Cody, thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure to be here. And, talk it out every time. I always feel like I'm in for something good.
Yeah, I feel good every time we get done with these conversations on the podcast with you, pal. So tell me about the weekend a little bit. You've been really impressive basically every time out so far this year, always in the top 5, of course. Through 5 races, you've went 5-4, 5-5-5. But I hinted at yesterday in a post on social media, I just think that your speed has been really, really impressive. fifth this past weekend now at Ironman, but you're racing forward in both motos. You had to kind of claw up to that front group. But, even before those top 5 finishes, again, your speed has really stood out to me. It's been really impressive all season long. So tell me about the season. Tell me about this past weekend.
Yeah, I feel like outside looking in, you look at results on paper, whether most likely when you're not at the race, you're like, oh, look, it's another fifth, it's another fifth, another fifth. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, not in like too much of a way, but it does bother me a little bit because I feel like I work so hard sometimes, and it's like, man, I felt so good this weekend, and I'm still on paper the same results. But in another angle, you can look at it and be like, well, I did fix this, this, and this here. Something that nobody can ever sleep on is the talent that's in the pro class right this second. Talent and group of hard workers does no justice. You could see the jump, from the Pro-Am guys, and not bashing anybody by any means, but the Pro-Am guys to pro is like skipping 2 or 3 classes to get to like the top group. Yeah. And I strongly see that. And it's so elite right this second. And, this being my ninth year, and then you see me with the same results. I think it's something else to look at over the years, the amount of, not problems, but different competitors I faced, a bunch of fierce guys. When I was racing in the beginning, it was racing Joe Bird and John Natale. These were guys that were top of their era of the time. And, eventually they go out and, new young blood comes in, and, with myself being in there with the mix the whole time, I'm kind of right in the center of it all every time. So, going into this year in specific, I felt really good over the winter, and I laid low about it. I had a really bad crash over like late January, and I like totaled one of my quads. I had to build a completely different one, and I didn't ride for like 3 weeks. Oh, wow. And I was going so fast, my quad cut out in like the divot of a jump. I endoed, I jumped over the bars. I don't know how I didn't break anything, but I was sure as heck beat up. I finally got a quad together, bought a frame, did A-arms, this, that, threw something together. I'm like 2 weeks out from Daytona, and I was shaken up. I go back to practice that day here at my house, and I crashed again my first day back. And I don't know if it was just, a little bit nervous and trying to get right back to it so quickly. And I couldn't wait, and I was a little impatient. But that speed I had early on over the winter, I've been working on a lot to just really overall push myself. And after that second crash, I feel like I lost a little bit because I just didn't trust the one quad I was on, to be honest with you. I had so many little issues with it, like electrical stuff, no engine related. We couldn't figure it out. And it was always a problem of it cutting out with no warning. And I was going so fast in the months of January. And it's really, Cody, for me, just been a fact of getting that trust back. And my race machine, I have full trust in, but it's kind of hard to put it into words. But I was doing so well, and I felt so good coming into the season. And then I was pretty scared for a little while of just, what it was. And then to have 2 ridiculously hard hits at my track at that speed and be lucky enough to walk away from both. Mm-hmm. So going into the last race, I pushed exceptionally hard, and put full trust into my machines, and doing a lot of sprints and a lot of get that speed back, because I do have it, but it's scary to push it a lot of times. And, I'm not going to be here and tough guy you and be like, I'm not scared to go that fast. Mm-hmm. When you actually go that fast, it's a little spooky.
Yeah, no. So you hit on so much there.
Yeah.
Awesome to get a glimpse into the stuff that you're dealing with behind the scenes, and stuff that you're overcoming clearly. And, we've had this conversation so many times, and I never want I never want the feeling around the conversations to be negative, because you hit on something that I had a bunch of people this weekend had this conversation with me. And this is something that I've been preaching. I really think that this class is as fast as it's been in as long as we can remember. And you're kind of hitting on that. You would know because you've been in the class for 9 or 10 years. You've raced a bunch of different guys, like you said, past champions. Add Josh Upperman to that list, and Thomas Brown, and all the dudes that you raced for all those years and battled with. And now I think like the class just keeps getting better and better and better. And there's more dudes in there. And I hate to hit on every week when, we're kind of, posting about each rider and how they're doing and all those things. And I hate to always be like, man, like last week I joked, for the millionth time, right, you're in the top 5. Yeah. But I think that is it's something that I hate to always be like, man, he's always in the top 5. And I don't want that to feel negative. Like that's a great thing in my mind, because think about how good that class is this year, where you've seen guys like Brandon Hogue go from 3rd to 6th. Same with Max Lindquist, go from 2nd to 6th or 7th. This past weekend, Jeffrey goes from at the front of the pack to outside the top 5. And you've been, I realize that, moto scores are different than overall scores, but to be 4th or 5th in every moto this year, when the class is as good as it is, and you guys have been dealing with a bunch of different conditions, this past weekend, as we joked about this on Saturday, polar opposite conditions to what you're used to at home. Yet that first moto specifically, you go from totally basically disconnected from the top 5-6 riders racing up to them, and then starting to pass those guys. Like I came away so impressed from this weekend. And again, I was excited to get you on the show here. That's why I wanted to, because I wanted to be able to tell you, man, I think that we do see past on the score sheet 4th or 5th.
Yeah.
I truly think, like I said, the speed that you've been riding with has me feeling like you're a contender for a podium each and every weekend. And like, there's been years in the past where maybe you were a tick off from that podium speed. This year, like you're just as much in the mix as anybody in a group that is as good as we've seen it.
Yeah, no, you hit on a lot there as well. I feel like, it'll go back to the same thing every time. And another thing that, I wrestle with a little bit mentally and sometimes overthink it, but the hole shots, I strongly feel I would ×3 or ×4 my podium amount of times I'd be on the podium 3 times as much or 4 times as much as I've ever been with a better start, because it's a lot easier to start in 4th or 5th. Like I would kill for a 4th, 5th place start, because you bet your butt I'm going to finish right there or forward. But even the first moto, like I think I probably took off 10th. I make my way to 4th, and there's some heavy hitters you got to go through.
Yeah.
That pro class is so gnarly right now of speed and smarts, but I also deal with guys that are consistently always in the top 3-4 hole shots, and that's very hard to beat. It's another thing that I'll get an earful from everybody, and with social media or comments, or people come up to me, you need to fix your start, you need to do that. Well, I'm aware of that. Easier said than done. Until you go do it, and realize how good the people are that I race every weekend. Mm-hmm. And, if you look at my starts, they're actually not bad. They're just not perfect. They're just not perfect like the guys next to me.
I was going to say, not to interrupt, but this is a conversation we've had in years past, and they are not like they were 2 years ago.
No, and they're not. But, if you want to be in that top group and a podium guy, you can't be taken off in 9th.
Right. Because
the only 2 guys that I think can truly take off in 9th or 10th and make their way to the top 3 is Wienen and Hatrick. That's about it. And I think Wienen, Wienen's got his work cut out for him now. He's still who he is. He's a phenomenal racer. He still was ahead of me the entire first moto right there, and then picked his way. It was impressive. The racing, man, right now is, you look at over the weekend, kind of take Joel out of it, not in a disrespectful way, but he's like truly in his own class.
Yep.
Like just out and gone. And then you look at 2nd to 6th, and you look at our qualifying times. Like, yeah, I qualified 2nd, but to tell you what it feels like to have 5 other guys behind me in the same second, I knew I had my hands full coming in, but I wasn't at a disadvantage. I was fast, and I knew that going into that. So it's good. It's tight stuff right now, and I'm sure it's exciting for the sideline.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it's awesome to talk about it. It's awesome to
Yeah.
cover it every week. So yeah, like I think that the Weenan thing, especially like that first moto, he was in fifth, I believe, for more than half of the first moto, which I think shows you how good that class is right now. And these guys believe, the guys that you're racing against, and you believe that you belong in that top 5 each and every weekend, top 3 each and every weekend. The other thing, that I wanted to obviously touch on is that second in qualifying. Not oftentimes have we seen you qualify second. The late race speed, the charging to the front, that stuff is where you've really, we've come to know you as that rider, not necessarily the dude that's qualifying second fastest. So that was impressive. I wanted to know what that felt like going to the line with second gate pick. That's always a good feeling. At the same time, and I've experienced that in my pro career, not being second fastest, but maybe being, 8th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and looking at the sheet and seeing, just like you were just hinting at, that for the next 3/4 of a second, 6 dudes or 5 dudes were separated by 3/4 of a second. And I remember thinking to myself, man, that just means that, I got to be at that pace for like the whole race, because everybody's that close. So tell me a little bit about that going to the line, first moto, second fastest. Awesome feeling, but knowing you were going to have to be on it with how good everybody was.
It's interesting because Ironman in specific, I've never been like a crazy huge fan, only because every time we've gone there, it's rained and we've never truly got a track
Right.
feel. And not because I did well over the weekend, but I really liked that track over the weekend when it was dry. It was a great racetrack. There was passing everywhere. There was big hits.
Yeah.
It was fast. It's not rough, but like it's nothing like I practice on. I don't ride anything like that ever.
Yeah.
So I surprised myself a little bit. I pushed myself at home a lot the 2 weeks prior coming into it, and I'm going to be doing the same every race here on out. But I felt on coming into the weekend in a good way. Like I gave it my all. But, after the first qualifying session, I made a couple like little mistakes, like little things. Yeah, if I clean these up, and I was in 4th, like a half second, I said it to my mechanic right when I came in. I was like, I'm going to get second next time we go out there. And I knew second because you look at Hatrick, 2 seconds ahead. Mm-hmm. And I was like, do I think 2 more seconds I can get? Realistically, I didn't think, but I knew I could get that half second more. And I literally said it. I remember saying it to him, I'm going to get second. And the second qualifier, we go out and I rolled like the first half of it and I went back to 6th. I wasn't too worried. I was kind of just waiting for a big gap to open because there was just guys everywhere. And I think I put in 1 lap that brought me to second. And I think Danny, my mechanic, was a little bit surprised. I was a little bit surprised, but like I knew if I nailed it, I had it. And it felt really good, but I'm such a competitive guy that, I look at the sheet, man, and I don't want to sound like a downer, but to tell you what it feels like to have a guy 2 seconds faster than that is like, man, what the heck are we doing wrong here to just be the second fastest in the world on that qualifying session of the fastest guys. Everyone's in and right behind me, close racing, but I'm still 2 seconds off of the guy that's the fastest on the track. And I always like to compare myself to the fastest guy on the track. And, I took it away from what it was. I'm right behind Joel. I think he was even surprised to see that because normally it's like a wean in or Ford, whoever it may be, to get that. But it's cool to go to the line with that. First qualifier, if I were to qualify first, I don't know if I'd really want that. Sometimes I want to see where the first guy's going to go. I think it'd be cool to get it, but I want to see where they're going to go. And especially like Ironman, where there was plenty of good gate picks. Yeah. Like you could have lined up in 7 of those spots and pulled that whole shot. It's less critical. Like certain tracks where there's like 2 good gates, you need that second pick. So it was good. I mean, it was a good feeling and I want it again.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. I was thinking about that over the weekend, that don't necessarily always want first gate pick or second gate pick. Sometimes, you want to see where the dudes are going to be, and maybe they'll leave you a spot on the inside where you can sneak up the inside and get a start. Touching on Ironman too, awesome. Yeah, awesome to think that we finally got an Ironman that was dry, right? And we kind of saw the potential of this racetrack. I thought it was really, really cool. I mean, years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, there was more blue blue groove tracks on the circuit, and there was more of that. And we don't really have a ton of that anymore. I mean, even High Point doesn't get like that. We don't have Muddy Creek anymore. I guess maybe Gatorback could get that way, but it was kind of moist this year. I mean, it wasn't blue groove necessarily. So I really thought it was cool that we got that style of a racetrack, being, again, like diversity. I mean, you practice on a track that's very much like we're going to go to next at Sunset Ridge, but to go, have a blue groove track, I just think that adds a bunch to the series. I like the diversity, kind of showing the strengths of different riders, and also like you said, I mean, you touched on the big hits. Obviously, everybody knows Godzilla and that whole section jumping down and how big that is, and that big new thing in the middle there, that triple jump or whatever. But others, like some other cool combinations. It was cool that they had a big enough, face on that roller at the bottom of the hill after the
so cool.
After the whole shot, and even that section before the bridge, right, where you could triple before the bridge, all that stuff. Just I kind of got this feeling like it's cool for you guys to be able to flex your muscles and show how good of riders you are on stuff like that. I thought it was really cool. It wasn't a basic track by any means. It was hard packed. It wasn't rough, but at the same time, the way the combinations got together, the way that you could, the S corners, I love that, how you use one corner to set up the other. I just thought it was a really, really, really good racetrack. And I hope that this is like the Ironman we get every year. I would love more tracks like this. I just thought, came away really, really impressed with the track we got this weekend.
Yeah, I think, it's always had that potential. We've just sheerly been, I could use the word unlucky. We've definitely been unlucky with weather in the past.
Yeah.
It had a little bit of everything, that track. I don't think the pictures and videos, unless you go there, do the justice of that pro section for how big that hill is. They're not hard to really make either one of those jumps. It's such a big hill, but the jumps are big. But you think about it, how many big hits there were per lap if you were in the pro class. Let's count those two you were just saying, jumping into those rollers, those two different ones. With those two, that middle one, and the two in the pro section, that's 5 big hits in a lap that we're doing. And it was actually pretty cool. I liked it. It was fun.
Some tracks that you would go to, any one of those jumps would be the biggest on the racetrack, right? Oh, yeah. And to go there and have all of them, like there was a there was a video that Gloop posted, I believe, of Joel landing Godzilla. And it's like he landed very close to the sweet spot and whatever. And it was still like, wham, like this big harsh landing. And I'm thinking, man, to think about doing that 5 times, 5 times each lap for 12 or 13 laps, 2 motos plus 2. I mean, just so much wear and tear. It's a credit to the bike prep you guys do. I mean, all that stuff. It's just such a huge deal.
Yeah, I mean, Godzilla is a pretty hard hit. I remember years ago, Godzilla used to actually not be filled in. It was a do or die.
Right.
And I think I was one of the first guys to do it, and the only 5 to do it the first year or two. Like you were hitting it or you weren't. And that jump's crazy. I think it needs a bigger landing, to be honest with you, or steeper. Because if it was steeper, it'd be less of a hit. But it's a cool jump. I love it.
Yeah, I was telling my wife actually when we were watching that, I'm like, man, when I was pro, that there was no tabletop. It was make or break. I remember maybe like Sepsi, didn't he like overshot it by a mile or came up short or something and broke a bunch of stuff. And I just remember to not get that test, to not be able to half jump it, man. And it's hard because it's not like a normal face, right? It's this giant hill. You don't know what kind of lift you're going to get.
It's huge.
Just crazy. And then I think too, like, not that step down is sketchy or I shouldn't say that, it's not scary by any means, but it is such a decline that I've always thought, like, if somebody got some gnarly bounce and like bounce,
or if you
like
land sideways and bounce,
oh my gosh, you'd fall 100 feet,
it could end really bad, and to hit that jump the right way, you got to jump far down it, because there is a bounce to it. There's like 2 landings, like
exactly,
the one where you'll bounce, but then the one where you got to really make it. And when you really make it, man, like you're falling out of the sky. It's crazy when you see like the hill you're about to go down.
I know it. Yeah. That's one of those jumps, right? You hit literally as hard as you can. You're trying to jump it as far as you can. So not often do you get that on the ATV motocross circuit. So the big hits I wanted to touch on, kind of getting that feeling. Not everybody, or very few probably of our listeners, will ever get that experience of hitting some of those big jumps at Ironman and Godzilla and all that stuff. So that's rad to talk about that. Sunset Ridge is next, right? A favorite of yours. We kind of touched on that just briefly. Conditions very much like home. Even we touched on this on Saturday when you and I chatted for a minute. Even it might come down to like hole shots, like being on that ground, that dirt kind of being close to home for you. It's going to be something that so that can only help. And we've seen you run inside the top 3 there before. I know you've podiumed there before a couple of years ago. I believe so, right?
No, I don't think I've never podiumed there. I've had great races there.
Okay, so then it was Moto podium, because I remember,
of course, yeah.
I remember that one, and it might have been 2020 or 2021, whatever it was. But I remember you being like 20 seconds ahead of fourth, like literally all by yourself. And then last year too, right? Very good second moto, got you fourth overall. So we've seen you go fast at Sunset Ridge before. Thoughts going into Walnut?
I'm pumped. I'm just, I'm surprised I did well at the last 2 tracks, to be honest with you, because they're nothing like what I practice on. But the next 2 I really like. You got Walnut, you got Budds Creek, which are really cool tracks. But Walnut is, in my opinion, I think the way it stood last year, hopefully again this year, which I think it will be, I think that's the best racetrack on our circuit, hands down. I think it's got the best passing. It's not the biggest jumps. It used to have really big jumps, but there's passing everywhere. It gets rough. It's, a little bit fast, a little bit technical. It's got a little bit of everything. I like it. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot like my track. And in certain years, it's like a lot like my track. It's crazy. So, I do feel at home there, and even like the whole shot there, the dirt's just like it, and that's really where I struggled over the weekend in Ironman. Was the dirt on that start was so tacky, I just could not get it to save my life. None of them felt good. But where Walnut, I know how that dirt's going to be, is not the same as mine, but it's way closer to mine than Ironman was to mine. So I am expecting and going to put a lot of pressure on myself to get good hole shots at Illinois, so I can truly shine on that track, because I like that style. That's my style track, and it's only because it's what I've rode.
Yeah. So. Yeah, even the videos from your track look so similar. I mean, obstacles look similar. The way the corners develop look similar. Dirt's similar. So, you definitely have that advantage. And I love that Bob Pistol there, the whole Pistol family. I love those guys so much, and they take so much pride in it, right? Like, even just look at the facility. I mean, there's not a stitch of grass that isn't perfect at that place. And he actually came up to me on Saturday after your guys' second moto, said, "These boys better be ready for it to be rough on Saturday at my track, because this
I didn't even know he was there."
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
He said this track was way too smooth today. So
it is.
so I love to hear that. But yeah, hopefully the weather works out. Should be really good. I love track getting rough. I came away from Saturday thinking about, you had to like finesse your passes, right? I mean, especially if you were making a pass in one of those corners, sliding up the inside, whatever it may be. And Sunset Ridge Walnut is like violent. You just have to blitz things to make passes. And I love that, again, the diversity, to think, you guys go from polar opposites, yet the cream's going to rise to the top. And I think that maybe this is the weekend that we see you get another podium. That'd be awesome.
Oh, I appreciate that. I'm ready to go, and I'm going to give it my all, to be honest with you. So it's something I'm excited for, and I've been waiting for this track for a while.
Yeah. And Budds too. I'm looking forward to that one as well. So
Budds, of course, too. I mean, I can't believe we're even halfway through the season so far.
It's nuts.
It's nuts. Yeah, it's nuts. It always happens like that.
You know how it is. I'm sure, especially with your schedule and traveling and everything, of bike prep, training, everything. But it's crazy how the day, like, it feels like you get a day and a half between races. It really does.
Oh yeah. When you have that 2-week break, it's go time very quickly. And especially if you have a problem, or if you have an engine that's blown up and you're in a pinch, that's difficult.
Mm-hmm.
It goes by fast, and we'll be at Lorez before we know it. Trust me.
Yeah.
Been here plenty of times.
It's crazy. I'm sure it doesn't feel like you've been doing this for a decade, Nick. The other thing I want to touch on before we get out of here, the other thing I got to ask you is, you've traveled the country in a toter, a Sprinter van. Now you got this motorhome, right? So I remember commending you last year for, kind of doing whatever you had to do to go to the races, right? Using doing the van setup, downsizing your whole program, all that stuff. You were doing whatever you had to do to make it work for your race program. So is the new motorhome life the best one yet, or what's the scoop with that?
Yeah, so it's a lot has changed. When my dad was coming to the races with me pretty much my whole life, it's huge. Like, you don't realize the value of your father, not just getting you to the races or paying for gas at the rest stops, whatever, but that and then the help of that person, where my dad might come with me to 1 or 2 races a year now, but I can say I entirely do my race program on my own now, the last few years, 100%. And that being said, when my dad had his really bad stroke a few years ago, at the same time is when gas or diesel in our other RV setup and trailer went up to like $6 a gallon. So here I'm at with $6 a gallon diesel, 100% on my own. I just couldn't do it. And there was not enough for me to want to travel the country to dump that amount of money when it takes away from anything else I could be making. And I just went like extreme opposite, and it was, hey, it's just going to be me that comes to the races, maybe Mike, my friend, to a bunch. I'm going to deck out a brand new Sprinter van, do that. And it was cool. I think Sprinter vans, even if I had $200,000 that people absolutely do all the time, dump into a van, it just doesn't do it for me. I think they're overrated because of just how small they are. I really don't care what they have in them. They just don't work. They're too small. Yeah, they're efficient on fuel, I guess, but you need room. And the setup I have now is such, like, it's not even that much more money. Like, what I spent in that van was ridiculous. And I got it back when I sold it. I got it all back, actually. The RV is just like a little bit more, but it's done. And I really, really, really enjoy not pulling the trailer, to be honest with you.
I believe it.
My garage is so tiny, like it's an 8x8 garage. It's still bigger than what I had in the Sprinter van, believe it or not. So you learn how to pack. Don't bring stuff you don't need. Bring one quad, bring a ton of parts, backup engine, pick quad. And like, you're fine. You know, you look at Weenan, he brings one quad. You look at Phoenix, they bring one quad. You know, people go to the races, and I used to do it too. You bring in 4 or 5 quads for what? Bring one, downsize. You know, like, it's I've done this my whole life, and then it's like, it's cool to show up with that, but it's also cool to be the guy spending the least getting to and from the races too. And even if you can do it, you know, it's just kind of like a lot of extra effort and no tolls. I'm not dragging anything behind me. I'm not blowing an axle or blowing a hitch on the trailer. It's just not to bash anyone that does it. I did it my whole life, but I don't miss a trailer even a little bit. And I could see this little setup that I have now of this Outlaw with the garage setup RV. I will probably do this setup from my career here on out. I think, don't hold me to it, because you never know.
You never know.
I'll probably do this setup like here on out. I just love it. I recommend it to anyone.
That's why I wanted to ask you about it, because I'm all about the efficiency. The efficiency is a big deal.
It's a gas motor. It's a V10, and it's actually not that bad on fuel. It's really not. Like, you think it's a gas guzzler. I'm like, yeah, it is, but like, not really.
Well, not like a toter pulling a trailer and, you know, it being diesel fuel, you know what I mean? So
yeah, but no, it's good. If you're not trying, you'll never know. So I don't regret anything I've tried within the racing to get, you know, I'll respect my decision to figure out, like, I tried this so I could go to the races that year.
Yeah, man, you tried it all. You tried it all.
You got to send it.
How long is the trip to Illinois?
1,000 miles one way. It's like 900 something, almost 1,000. So it's like 2,000 round trip. So it'll cost me like $1,000 in fuel in that thing to go there and back.
And so what is it like? What is that, like 16 hours one way or something?
It's like 14.
Okay. Well,
yeah, I think it's 14. It's cool though. Yeah.
I see. Well, you know, Buds is going to be close, right? Buds is close.
Buds will be close. That'll be the closest national I've ever had in my life. That's closer than Dill. Like, I'm looking forward to that. I've never raced 3.5 hours from home is my closest one.
Okay. So well, that's what
big crew going to that to watch too, which is exciting.
Yeah, I like to hear that. That's what Sunset is for us. It's about 4 hours. So,
nice.
Well, Bell, I appreciate the time, appreciate the insight, all the stuff. Like I said before, I love having you on the show every time, and I really appreciate your time being here as always, and wishing you safe travels. I know you're probably headed to the track today, or your backyard, I should say, to do some laps, right? And just wishing you all the best, pal. Looking forward to seeing you at Sunset Ridge.
Thank you very much for your time, Cody.
You're the man, Nick. That's Nick Gennusa right here on the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast, brought to you by CST Tires. Thanks again, buddy. Great job this weekend.
Thank you. Talk to you soon. Safe travels.
See you, pal.
We interrupt this program for a special news bulletin.
The following message is brought to you by Manscaped.com. The Manscaped engineering team has outdone themselves this time, creating the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, now available for purchase in the US and Canada. Join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped, an official sponsor of the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast, with this exclusive offer of 20% off and free worldwide shipping with code DiggingDeep20 at manscaped.com. I'm one of the first people to try the new 4.0 and I am blown away. This thing is next level. What sets this trimmer apart from all the rest? The Lawnmower 4.0 gives you the ability to turn the LED spotlight on and off when needed for a more precise shave. It features a new multi-functioning on-off switch with travel lock for those of us who like to travel. And my favorite, the new trimmer allows you to customize your trim with 4 different guard lengths, an upgrade from its predecessor that only featured 2. If you're listening, you know that good tools are a must, so wait no more to get the best tools for the job. Get 20% off and free shipping with code DiggingDeep20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com by using code DiggingDeep20.
Hey everyone, this is Larry Mills, president of DP Brakes North America and proud partner of the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast. We at DP Brakes are a longtime supporter of ATV racing and the world leader in sintered brake technology, dominating the ATV world for decades by supporting the best four-wheeled racers on the planet. This year's lineup includes Jeff Rastrelli, Mark Baldwin and Baldwin Motorsports, Ford Brothers Racing, Nick Gennusa, and many more, including Mr. Digging Deep himself, Cody Jansen. Plus all the top 17 GNCC pros such as 7-time champion Walker Fowler, Bryson Neal, Hunter Hart, Cole Richardson, Jared McClure, Adam McGill, and previous champion Chris Borich. These top riders continue to appreciate the high performance and impressive durability that their DP brakes have to offer, products that ultimately help place them on top of the podium week after week. DP brakes are available through www.dp-brakes.com, or you can purchase them through your local Parts Unlimited stocking dealer, or you can even message us, myself, Larry Mills, or DP Brakes on Instagram or Facebook. And if you have any questions about product or sponsorship support, please ask us. We are waiting for you. Join the best ATV riders in the world equipped with DP Brakes, and have a great year, everyone.
Nearing 2 decades into the brand's existence, Factory 43 is back and better than ever, continuing to make major waves in the ATV world. For the 3rd consecutive season, Factory 43 is the official aluminum parts choice of the Phoenix Racing ATV team, providing their state-of-the-art Evo Nerf bars, MX-style front bumpers, and grab bars for 2-time champ Joel Hatrick. If you're in the market to upgrade your Nerf bars, bumpers, or grab bars, head over to factory43atv.com to see their full line of industry-leading products available for all makes and models. Head over to factory43atv.com today.
Success in the ATV MX world is similar to what creates financial success as well. The right people, the right advice, and more importantly, hard work and the benefit of an ongoing relationship as situations change and adversity is experienced. Do you have the right financial advisor to help you reach your goals? Haymauer Financial Group can create a personalized, goal-based plan to help your family prepare for whatever life brings. Call me, Scott Haymauer, at Haymauer Financial Group, a private wealth advisory practice of Ameriprise Financial Services, at 920-338-8150. That's 920-338-8150. Offices located in beautiful De Pere, Wisconsin, with registrations and clients nationwide.
Headlined by their 4130 Chromoly, Launderville Steel and Concrete Supply is a full-service steel supplier of new and surplus steel, aluminum, and stainless steel products. This racing family-owned full metal service center and concrete product supplier comes with over 30 years of experience serving the entire United States from their central Midwest location. As the #1 choice for nationwide shipments and with available next-day delivery in select areas, LSE has you covered near or far. 4130 is not just the chromoly tubing and plate used in the building of chassis for an array of motorsports applications, but it is also the name of the newest addition to the pro paddock, with riders Jaden JJ Launderville and Max Lindquist, introducing the new 4130 Motorsports team. Launderville Steel offers a large selection of material for any project, including their concrete division that can supply everything you need to complete your next business or personal project. For a quote or more info, visit laundervillesteel.com today or give them a call at 715-675-6193. That's 715-675-6193. Here at Digging Deep, we have an obvious passion for ATVs and pridefully enjoy sharing the sport's history. Since 2019, when the podcast was born, we've been working to partner with individuals who share our passion, but one man and his vision had been missing from our partnership group. until now. When it comes to the sport's history, the hallowed grounds of Binky's Forever ATC Museum has it all. Binky Tapscott's mind-blowing collection of 3- and 4-wheelers has preserved history by spanning all makes and models from Honda 3-wheelers in chronological order to unique builds that shaped ATV racing as we know it, like Doug Gust's iconic DRZ-powered hybrid thumper and everything in between. There's no denying Binky's passion, a passion that we certainly relate to here at Digging Deep. Binky's goal is to share his amazing collection with fellow enthusiasts by making his prized possessions accessible to the public via scheduled visits. Follow Forever ATC Museum on Facebook and watch foreveratc.com for further updates on possibly getting a chance to see Binky's Forever ATC Museum for yourself. We are proud to welcome Binky's Forever ATC Museum to the Digging Deep family. As the #1 podcast in ATV racing, it's only right that we partner with the industry leaders in suspension tuning. Insert Impact Solutions. Impact Solutions is a full-service ATV and side-by-side suspension center specializing in the revalving and service of your motocross and off-road suspension. With over 25 years of elite-level knowledge, experience, and testing with riders of all ages and ability levels, Jay Goebel and the Impact crew strive to exceed clients' expectations for service and setup. Impact Solutions is the official Elka Suspension Service Center of the United States, offering unmatched product knowledge and experience. Whether you're in need of service, parts, warranty, sales, or technical support, Impact Solutions has you covered. Head over to impactsolutionsatv.com or give them a call today. Thanks for listening, and remember to support our partners. Now back to the show. All right, guys, your host Cody Jansen here on the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast. One final time wrapping up our coverage of Ironman. Major thanks to Nick Gennusa for joining us there. Always love having him on the show. He's always so forthcoming and so honest with his answers. So we need to finish up our overall. So Joel Hatrick 1-1 for first overall. Chad Wienen 2-2 second overall. Bryce Ford 3-4 third overall. We heard from Brandon Hogue 6-3 for fourth overall. Nick Gennusa, you just heard from, impressive in that first moto, especially 4-5 for fifth overall. Jeffrey Rastrelli, down day for him. Obviously, Jeffrey wouldn't be very happy with the 5-6 score, especially with the hole shot in that second moto, but he'll be better. He will definitely be better. Would have probably expected a little more from him on this day, just solely because he's told us he seems to really shine in the hard pack tracks. But Florida guy, got to think that we're going to see some good stuff out of him at Sunset Ridge. Max Lindquist ended up 7th overall with 7-7 scores, 7th overall. But we saw some flashes from him. I mean, we know some changes are being made with this program, kind of trying to get back to his roots, back to what we've seen from Max in the last couple of years, where he's been really, really impressive and finished on the podium and all these things. So he had been doing a little searching, but he is trending upward. He was really fast in that second moto. So don't just look at 7-7 for 7th scores and think like he was in no man's land, because that's not the case. He actually made that push in the second moto like we had referenced on Jeffrey Rastrelli. So Max Lindquist, another guy to watch as the series heads to another Midwest track, a track that would be Max's quote-unquote home race at Sunset Ridge for us Wisconsinites. He's going to be a rider to watch. Wesley Wolf shows up 8th overall on the results sheet, 8-8 for 8th on this day. Wesley, man, he is so impressive to me. We know that he doesn't do a ton of riding. We know that he's framing houses and on top of roofs and stuff, working for his dad's company. And he just shows up races, and he is a dog. Wesley Wolf, I know you've never taken our invite to be on the show here, but we really would love to have you. One of these days, hopefully we can make it happen. The invitation's always open, but 8-8 day for him, 8th overall. Another strong day for Wesley Wolf. He's in the top half of this pack, this class, and every weekend he's just solid. You know exactly what you're going to get from him. Logan Stanfield, Indiana zone. He was on the t-shirt. T-shirt looked awesome, by the way. 9th overall in the day for Logan Stanfield. I'm sure he wanted more. 10-9 scores for 9th overall. But the middle of the class, there's just so fast. It seemed to me that Logan didn't get the starts on this day. I mean, he just wasn't flashing the starts that he needed to be 5, 6, 7. That's what he's shooting for. We know he's shooting for top fives, but 9th on the day is what Logan could muster up at Crawfordsville. And I got to believe that's very start related. He was racing forward in both motos. And rounding out the top 10, Kevin Saar. Kevin Saar goes 9-10. So him and Logan actually tied on the day, but Logan was better in that second moto. So Kevin Saar finishes 10th overall for the Music Racing and Repair team. And man, he goes on to win Pro-Am on Sunday, going 1-1. But I came away from this weekend so freaking impressed with Kevin Saar. The corners, these sweeping corners and hard pack corners, the sliding in and out of these corners, man, watching Kevin Saar, and specifically in Pro-Am probably because, he was the fastest guy on the racetrack and it was very easy to focus on him. But it was like watching poetry in motion, hitting his marks lap after lap after lap. Now, I know I've referenced and called him the Chad Wienen of Europe as a 5-time European champion. Very easy to call him that, but I was actually talking to his team and talking about him hitting his marks and how good he looked, poetry in motion, all the stuff I just said. And they had mentioned how precise he was, how methodical he was, hitting his marks over and over and over again, referencing Chad Wienen. And yeah, so I came away so impressed with Kevin Saar, top 10 on Saturday, winning Pro-Am on Sunday, his first win in the States, which is pretty darn impressive for the Estonian. And I know that team wants him back for next year. They hope that this is just the first of multiple years together with Kevin Saar. So congrats to him on finishing in the top 10. And we've confirmed he is eligible for Rookie of the Year. So he's the clear Rookie of the Year front runner. He's the favorite for that award, and rounding out the top 10 at Ironman. 11th was Michael Allred, 11-11 for 11th. That's a pretty solid day for him, pretty consistent day for Mike. And I believe, and we'll get to this in a minute here, but I believe we're going to find him getting very, very close to the top 10 in points. Very close. So Michael Allred, after an injury last year, his return to the series this year, doing very well. It's been very consistent and doing very well. Vince Merman comes in at 12th overall, 13-12 for 12th. Impressive day for him. Really good day for him. He's moving in the right direction for sure, and he was the key pick, separating our winners from our close to winners in ATV Fantasy, because we know that perfect team was Joel Hatrick, Bryce Ford, Brandon Hogue, and Max Lindquist was our top four. I had those right, even just about the closest I've ever been to winning one of these things. But Vince Merman was the staple pick, the lock pick, the winning pick in ATV Fantasy this week. He was the decisive guy there, finishing at the top of that tier. So 12th overall for Vince Merman. Super good job for him. 13th overall was Cody Ford. We know that he is shooting for more. No secret, I do some PR work for those guys, their press releases and stuff, and some interactions with the team there. We know that he's looking forward to the rougher racetracks and being able to put his fitness and his grit, if you will, to the test at some of these rougher tracks. And he is going to get that rougher track at Sunset Ridge, that's for sure. So Cody Ford, 14-13 for 13th overall. And following him is another Texan, 14th overall, Aaron Salinas. He goes 12-15 for 14th overall. He was really fast in qualifying in the top 10, but it was that second moto get off early in the second moto, just a few corners in, that hindered him obviously on this day and set him behind. Otherwise, say he goes 12-12 in the second moto, that would have been about good enough for 12th overall. So he would have bumped him up a couple spots maybe if he wouldn't have had that crash. You can almost guarantee that. But overall, Aaron Salinas continues to be a rookie that's flashing above any of the other standard rookies, or however you want to kind of qualify Saar as an outlier. 5-time European champion and a more seasoned rider. He's a rookie, clearly rookie in the States, but different, kind of cut from a different cloth than Salinas, Ulrich, Molander, right? So Aaron Salinas has been, if I call them the newcomers from the Pro-Am class, he's been, well, I guess maybe I can't even say that because Adam Ulrich has been really, really good. But Aaron Salinas maybe has flashed more than anybody else, put it that way. Speaking of Adam Ulrich, he ends up 15th overall, 16-14 for 15th. And I felt for him. He broke leading the first Moto and Pro-Am on Sunday. I know that we're talking about the pro class here, but not the weekend that Adam wanted. Overall, though, he's been quite impressive. He's been impressive as any of these incoming guys, like I said. So 15th overall for him, but I would expect more from him going forward. He's shown us more in the early stages of this season so far. So on the back half, on the back nine, if you will, in golf terms, I think that we can expect more from Adam Ulrich going forward. Zach Harris ends up 16th overall, 15-18 for 16th. Marshall Smith 17th overall, 17-17 for 17th. And we had mentioned Dane Molander earlier dealing with that A-arm problem. The guy just can't catch a break right now. He goes DNS 16 for 18th overall to finish up our coverage of the overalls at Ironman. So quickly touching on the points, Joel Hatrick finds himself 33 points up now over the rest of the field. Bryce Ford still finds himself in second. He's 12 points ahead of Jeffrey Rastrelli, and Jeffrey Rastrelli in third is 13 points ahead of Chad Wienen. If you're wondering, if you're keeping score at home, Chad Wienen with 156, Joel Hatrick with 214. So he is 58 points behind, meaning say we go to Sunset Ridge this weekend. Joel Hatrick decides, hey man, I'm gonna take a weekend off. I'm gonna head out on the boat or something. He's a whole race ahead, is what I'm getting at. He could skip a whole race and he would still be, but he probably wouldn't still be leading the series over Bryce Ford, but he would be over Chad Wienen. So Chad Wienen has some work to do, but that's a topic you'll hear ahead with Ken Hill. That's a teaser there. And for those of you wondering, fifth in points is Nick Gennusa, where he always is, and he's got a nice little buffer over Brandon Hogue, about 12 points over Brandon Hogue, who's sixth. So yeah, that's our points standings heading into round 6 at Sunset Ridge. I can't believe the second half of the season is here. And one of the last things that we have to tie up here is our SSI decals, top 5 storylines, right? We want to go over the things that we learned this past weekend. Recapping, our storyline number 5 is, can Joel Hatrick make it 3 in a row at Ironman, a track that he's traditionally so strong at? Obviously, we know the answer to that. He led every lap but one. He was the fast qualifier by 2 seconds. He was extremely impressive, 1-1 en route to a perfect day at Ironman. So we know the answer to storyline number 5. So storyline number 4 is, do we see Logan Stanfield get his second career top 5 finish on home soil? We just got done going over that. He needed some starts if that was going to happen. Didn't get the starts he needed. Clawed his way forward to that 9th overall position. Nothing wrong with 9th. The class is just really, really good and fast right now. That's what it comes down to. Storyline number 3 in our SSI Decals top 5 storylines heading into this event at round 5. Max Lindquist and Brandon Hogue were both better at High Point. Do we see further improvement from these riders? And I think you could argue we saw further improvement from both of them. Brandon Hogue, obviously, we see him finish on the podium in that second moto, 4th overall. So that answered itself. He was definitely steps forward, definitely impressive in that second moto and on this weekend in general. And Max Lindquist, again, like I said earlier, if you just look at the box score, it might not tell the whole story. You might not get the whole picture. 7-7 for 7th overall, but he was clearly better. We watched him race up to Jeffrey Rastrelli, and I thought he was maybe going to make the move late in that moto, second moto, I believe. So Max Lindquist, again, a rider to watch as he's got some changes going on within his program to get back to the stuff he knew that helped power him to, I believe, 4 podiums the last couple seasons. His first seasons as a professional. Max Lindquist is a rider very much trending up and a rider to watch at Sunset Ridge and beyond in the second half of this season. Storyline number 2, counting down to 1, is Bryce Ford versus Jeffrey Rastrelli. We know that those guys are the other 2 riders that have finished on the podium this season, other than Chad Wienen and Joel Hatrick, of course. But which one of those riders was going to be the one to take a step at this race? And obviously, obviously it was very much Bryce Ford. He finishes third overall on the day. He was up front in both motos. He got the whole shot in the second moto. He battled with Chad Wienen for a lot of, or held off, I should say, kind of kept Chad Wienen at bay for a lot of the first moto. So Bryce Ford was really impressive on this day. And Jeffrey, obviously a friend of the show, the guy we love cheering for, but he's not going to be happy with that moto that he had there, because especially the second moto where he ripped the whole shot and ends up finishing sixth and sixth overall. So Bryce Ford is the one that sees the day there with our SSI Decals Top 5 Storylines number 2. And number 1 was the rain. Can we get a dry Crawfordsville for once? Was exactly what I have written down on my paper here. And we got it. The weather was a threat. The weather was a threat for sure, but it never happened. A couple sprinkles, and there was literally nothing more than those couple sprinkles. Not a factor. Track was perfect. I loved those conditions. It was awesome. Crawfordsville was awesome. That was a Crawfordsville I'll never forget. Hopefully we can get this in years to come. But the rain was not a factor. Track was awesome. Gave us tons of options, some technicalities. Just really, really, really perfect racing on a perfect track is what we got from Ironman. So that is our top 5 storylines from Ironman. So without further ado, let's get to Ken Hill. We'll do our top 5 storylines heading into Sunset Ridge after we get done with Ken, and we'll briefly touch on the amateur stuff after we get done with Ken as well. So let's talk to Ken. So let's move on to Ken Hill, a can't miss segment, a guy I've been wanting to get on the show for literally years, and it very much lived up to the hype. It was awesome. So enjoy. All right, guys, Ironman is one of our absolute favorite races of the year, so it's only fitting that I got a guest here with me that is a favorite of so many in the pits at an ATV Motocross National, a no doubt OG, the series photographer for as long as I can remember, presented by Valvoline and their new Ultimate Power Sports line of oil. Say hello to Mr. Ken Hill. Ken, I've asked you to do this a few times now, and I'm stoked that it's finally happening. Thanks so much for joining me.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for the invite. It's been last couple of years been a little crazy with my health, but I'm happy to say I'm here to talk to you.
Well, we're obviously happy to have you, Ken. From day one, I remember you saying, I support what you're doing, what you're trying to grow. You can use any of my stuff, all that stuff. And coming from you, who obviously, I used your stuff and we worked closely. You did my photo shoots and stuff as a pro, all those things. But even just to have your even words of support as Digging Deep was in its infancy, that meant a lot to me. So it really, I'm so glad. I dreamt of having you on the show, and you've had so much experience. I'm sure so many stories, relationships with every one of these riders that we'd like to talk about. So yeah, again, that all meant a ton to me, and I wanted you to know that, but also I'm just as excited to sit down here with you, pal.
Oh yeah, like I said, I appreciate the invite. I've always tried to do, what was best by the series and the riders, and try not to do it for myself. I always tell everybody I don't care about photo credit, just get my name right on the paycheck. I mean, there's when I go back, the funny thing is you said about stories and stuff, and I can't sit here and think of any one story of all the years. I mean, when did I even start shooting this stuff? Like 2003, I probably shot 1 or 2.
Okay.
And it kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And for a while, it was just, you just went, you shot the pictures. Well, I will tell you one story. After we were shooting for Kawasaki at that time, Harlan Foley and I.
Okay.
And Harlan calls me and says, hey, he says, you need to go up the next round and introduce yourself to the Kawasaki team. And I was like, why? Are they special? And because Josh Kramer and I think Chad Wienen was riding for him at that time.
Okay.
Maybe I don't remember, but I know Kramer was. He said, well, they just called me and they were like, who is taking these pictures? And they're like, well, my guy Ken is. And they were like, well, we didn't even see him take these pictures. It's kind of weird. He's just, all of a sudden our pictures were showing up online and we didn't even see him. I always got a chuckle out of that, because, I don't know. A photographer should, at least my vision of what I wanted to do in this sport was, your work should be seen and you should not be hurt, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And to have your work speak for itself, right? I mean, that's probably the biggest compliment that somebody in your role can get, I would think.
Well, it is. But again, going back to day one, it was always about the rider. I mean, yeah, you had to get paid. Yeah, you had to make it worth your while. But the deal was, for me, and it still remains so today, is that the riders are shown and portrayed in a good light. That their sponsors get to see what's going on at the races, whether it's good or bad. The series needs to see what goes on the races, whether it's good or bad. You don't fix things without finding the problems.
Right.
But I don't have to be the name always beating my chest and screaming there's a problem. But, when I can show you a picture of this is an issue, that's an issue, it brings a little more weight to the argument.
Yeah, for sure. And I always respected and appreciated the way that you went about your business for guys like me who wasn't making any money doing the pro ATV thing. Right. And like as a privateer racer, which most everybody is in this sport, you need that content to be able to market yourself and advertise your sponsors and all those things. that I'm not opposed to, spending spending the money and whatever. But I guess what I'm getting at is, dating way back to my early days as a pro, you making your photos available to riders like me, it meant so much. And then, I mean, I even remember being younger than that, dating back to when, you were talking about shooting for Kawasaki, which would have been, 06, 07, 08, in that time period there, 09, something like that. And I remember back then, and it's funny to think of like what it was like back then as an amateur or a youth rider, even dating back to that era, and how special it is just to like go on those albums in, the series albums or whatever they were at the time. And just to like see photos of you, when you're an amateur and you're not used, especially back then, not everybody, you didn't have a video camera or a pretty nice camera in your pocket at all times. Right. So like it was relatively rare back then to see photos and videos of yourself riding. So then to find that as an amateur, even to go on and see photos of you, that was a really big deal for me, at least. And I just, from day one, the way you went about your business, the way that you always put the riders first, there was no debate about that. Just everything you've given to the series and the sport is so appreciated by dudes like me.
Well, I mean, and I'm glad to hear that, but I'm thinking back now to, it was where we're going this weekend for the GNCC at the John Penton, Sunday Creek,
Ohio.
Yeah. The year that's the year I started for, shooting for the series, because Dean, who was running the series at that time, was like, I need pictures constantly. And I was sending him everything I could. And finally, Carrie called, and Carrie Russell, and said, hey, you need to come in. We need to talk. And of course, that's normally not a good thing. And I was still working a full-time job. There was no, you're just a photographer. I was working, 60, 80 hours a week, making a living and whatnot. And so was my wife. But I sat down and Carrie said, I need a photographer. And I was like, okay. I said, I can do it. And it just also happened to be the year that I actually retired from the 9 to 5.
Okay.
And I told her, get me to the races, give me a place to stay, and I'll shoot everybody I can. Whatever you need, just holler. And that's the way we've worked it. And she's never said, you did this wrong, or you need to do this better, or whatever. They've kind of left it all up to me.
Yeah.
And going back to that race, just the destruction at that race because of that 80, 90 mile an hour wind shear.
That weather, it destroyed everybody's stuff up on that hill there.
Yep.
Yeah.
I walked in and I was I cannot remember what pro I was talking to. He was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I lost my easy ups. And, I'm thinking, oh, good Lord, got by a couple easy ups. But even, $200 back then was a ton of money for a pro rider.
Mm-hmm. Sure was.
And, you know, I just kind of, I got with Terry and I just said, look, if we're going to put out a gallery, then I'm just going to throw my pictures online. If they want to buy them, great. But let's make sure that they always have access to images, whether they're pro, amateur, whatever we can get for them. And that's the way I've run it. You can still go online today and click on a picture and download it to your computer or your phone, use it on social media. You don't have to pay a dime. If you pay the $5, hey, it's awesome. You know, that's great. Plenty of people show their support that way.
Yep.
But the only thing that I've noticed is that as I've gotten older, I mean, I'm 53 now, 52. How old am I? I'll be 53 in July. I forgot.
Okay.
And with the health issues, is I'm not able to shoot as many of the amateurs as I want.
Okay.
That's the part that I think that I'm failing at, and I need to do more of that. But you know, I can only push myself so hard before I go down, and it's better to stay on your feet than it is to burn out.
Yeah. Well, I think over the years, these last couple of years, especially, right, Ken? I mean, you've figured out, you know, you've made some improvements, obviously, with your health and figured out what you needed to do to manage all this. And sure. In these last couple of years, when you were maybe a little bit hit or miss at the races and didn't make it to them all and stuff, I mean, there was a major void missing there. Like, again, it's just, you're such an integral part of the series. And
see, I never see myself that way. There's always key figures in every business that you count on, whether they're the guy doing the heavy lifting or not. You've been there so long that you're part of it. Like Ricky Cowrie at the GNCCs. I can't even think of a race I haven't seen him flag, you know, ever.
Sure.
You'd have to back past my time, 20 years, you know, past then to find a race he didn't flag for them.
Okay.
But Rodney Tomlin, you know, he went on back to better things or bigger things or whatever he's got to do.
But it's weird. It's weird without him, though, right, Ken? It's not right.
Oh, it is. But, you know, it's funny because I still get to hear his voice at the GNCCs.
Okay.
They pre-record a bunch of stuff, like the riders meeting and things. And so I always get a smile when I hear his voice. And I just kind of chuckle. I was like, Rodney's here one way or another.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. I think that everything that you've continued to do, it just means so much to so many of us. And yeah, it wasn't right without you there. I mean, and then mentioning like your galleries, right? Like on the Digging Deep pages, I like to show some up close shots, right? Like those are the ones I tend to like the most for whatever reason. I like when you can see the parts people are using, the intricacies of these beautiful machines that these riders have. And so I pay the $580, right? I think I just got one last night to post a picture of Nick Gennusa, right? I mean, obviously happy to support you in that way, but I like to get those crystal clear photos that you offer on there. So the $5 is an easy, cheap price to pay.
Well, I mean, it is, but you know, going back to the rounds that I missed, you know, last year I tried to step away from the ATV motocross. My wife was begging me to just do the cross country races so I could get a break in between them.
Okay.
And you know, I tried. They hired somebody. It didn't work out.
Yep.
You know, I wasn't privy to any of that. So I came back, and then I've tried to find somebody to step in and take, you know, what I do, and it needs to be done the way I do it. I mean, you don't have to do everything the way I tell you to do it, but there's 20 years is a long time to put together a system that works.
There's a good model there. Yeah.
Yes, very efficiently. I have no problem telling people about it. You know, I'm like, do it. But they get into the sport and they realize, wait a minute, I could make more money at home working for company A, B, or C.
Yeah.
And, you know, everybody, I don't know, I guess maybe they want to be the next big thing. They want to hear their name heard, whatever. Sure. They just don't, you know, it's like a pro rider coming up through a rider coming up through the ranks and jumping into pro thinking he's going to be beating Joe Hatrick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember your name is the guy who screwed up on this jump or wrecked it in this turn. You know, you got to pay your dues. You got to take your knocks, and and you know, gradually people will we'll take what you're giving them.
Mm-hmm.
People just don't listen. That's the problem I have with the younger generation is, yeah, there's a lot of people out there just blowing smoke up their skirt. But then there's guys like me who you walk up and ask me a question, I'll tell you the answer. You may not like what I say, but you can guarantee it's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And if you ask me, the photog Brandon was out there running around this weekend, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And I was just like, this is the way I do it, blah, blah, blah. It's very simple. It's very fast. It's very efficient.
Yeah.
Who was Steve Jobs said, you want the job done as fast and efficient as possible, hire the laziest guy you can find. Not that I'm lazy, but my idea of fun isn't sitting in a hotel for 6 hours after a race and editing pictures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You learn to do the edit work in the camera, make the shot great, and then you don't have to do that.
Sure.
The rest of the stuff is literally just pick a program that works best for you and go with it. But with social media, time, everything is time. Look how fast Blute's throwing out videos now.
I know.
Tremelin.
I know. It's amazing.
That wasn't possible.
Mm-hmm.
And video is where it's at. I mean, with being able to customize it with your, you got a video, maybe somebody hanging over the fence with a camcorder and gets a clip. You take it home, you throw some music to it, you put it up, bam, you get a bunch of views and hits. Your sponsors like it.
Yep. It's
huge. And that's why, the series social media is loaded with videos because they go out unfeathered. They don't get any lithogram. Well, they may now, but they didn't. So if we put up a picture of a race, or 2 or 3 pictures, they got some. It went out to some of the people, but the video went to everybody.
Well, and I think with the videos too, right? Like that authentic, unedited rawness is what people like, kind of, which actually helps the video guys.
Yeah, and it drives me nuts because I'm the biggest critic there is. But a lot of the pictures you say, the close ins, this and that. If you watch a lot of my pictures, if I see a banner in the background, one of our sponsors, I'm going to try to get that picture, that sponsor's banner in that picture.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
That's something a lot of the motocross, quite frankly, there isn't any banners out there anymore.
No, there's not. Not like it used to be.
It makes it pretty dang hard.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, that tells you where the sport, I never really like calling it a sport. It should be run as a business, whether you're a pro or an amateur. I mean, I've seen it all. In 2006, with the factory involvement, and the big hoopla over everything, and then it fell flat again.
You're exactly right. You've seen it all because in 2006 was that era there. It was its heyday, and then WPSA comes in and it splits, and ATV MX is small, and then they have to come back, but then there's the recession and all that stuff. And now it feels like we've been in a very similar era for the last 10 years.
Well, I never shot a WPSA. I wanted to,
okay.
But Harlan all went to them and I was stuck with the ATV Motocross, which is fine.
Yep.
But watching Joe Bird win a championship when there's only 6 pros, showing up these races.
Yeah.
And only 1 or 2 able to give him any kind of a fight. It was just like the lost years, it was like, whoa, not that Joe Bird wasn't fast and he deserved everything he's earned.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it'd be like me showing up to a race and being the only guy there with a camera.
Right. Yeah.
All I'm going to get, all the love. Competition is a good thing.
Yeah.
Like when I see other guys out on the track, as long as they're legit to be out on that track, let's go, let's shoot. Because I'm watching them. One, I have to. The series doesn't want them in bad spots, yada, yada.
Sure.
If I somebody in a very dangerous position, I'll go over and tell them, you got to move. You won't see me shooting here.
Yeah.
This is bad news. Get out of there. But you need competition. You want to come home and look at your pictures and see what's out there on social media and go, okay, next round we'll see. It helps you. It helps build you. You can compete friendly. You don't have to be a jerk about it.
Absolutely.
Yep. It's like video. I love video. I love taking video of deer and stuff like that, wildlife. And I would love to practice at the races with video, but I never have any time. And now, of course, I'm just like, oh my God, the motor's over. I got to go get a drink. I got to get my feet up. They're swelling, yada, 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 all the old guy stuff.
Sure.
And, it's killing me. because I want to do so much more, and I can't. We took my grandson fishing yesterday, and literally I bent over 2 or 3 times, and that was it. I was done. I couldn't bend over anymore. My abdomen swells from the liver, and it hurts. And it's the same thing. I can't get down on my knee anymore to shoot, get a low angle.
Sure.
I'll probably have to ask somebody for help to get up. It's pitiful. And I'll quit when they got somebody that can do the job, to their satisfaction.
Right.
And then because I don't want to be the guy who's leeching onto this or that just because I've been in the industry for so long. Let new blood come in. Let people, see what else is out there. I mean, I'm not trying to hide anything from anybody. I post every picture I take.
Yep.
Some good, some bad, some could be edited. Sure. I just don't have time.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll give me something to do in my golden years, just go back and
edit old photos. That's funny. No, I think it's so commendable, everything that you've given and continue to give. Being out for the betterment of the sport is something that's rare. Not necessarily, I mean, there's tons of good people in our sport, don't get me wrong, and there's a lot of people that care, but I think it's something that I hopefully am on my way to modeling some of what we do at Digging Deep after that. I had a conversation with some people this weekend that said, man, and this was a compliment that I hold in the highest regard, that they're like, you could go be putting in as much effort as you're putting in at Digging Deep into something else and making good money, but I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't.
I literally, if I had a suggestion to go to the top of the series, it would be, why don't you have Cody Jansen writing the race reports? I have to write them. Not that I want out of the work. It's just that you are so well versed in what's going on with these riders and you watch it so close. I just don't have that time.
I was going to ask you, 'cause I thought that you were the one that wrote those. Yeah.
Yeah. I come home from a race and I'm busy here, trying to keep this place going. And then I got to turn around and leave to go to a GNCC. And that's just craziness for for 2.5 days. Then you've got work to do when you get home from them.
Right.
But I do motocross too, but it's a lot easier than GNCC.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, why isn't he writing these race reports? Because I literally go to yours, on Monday morning, I go to the Digging Deep thing and read the comments.
Sure.
Or not the comments, but the
our
thing
play-by-play.
And I'm like, okay. Yeah. And just like the picture you said with Brandon Hogue and who was it?
Bryce Ford.
Maybe it was Bryce. Yeah. Yeah. I remember taking the picture, but I didn't know what idea, what place they were in.
Oh, it's at the finish line there, right? Battling for third at the finish. Yeah.
But see, I mean, my mind is into other things, not like away from the sport, but I'm thinking of, okay, I've got to get this work done. I've got to get that work done. And then by the time I go back to the race, and I've tried doing it at the hotel that night, it still doesn't work.
Sure.
Because if we put out just a cut and dry race report, that's fine. That's just an industry standard. Joe Hatrick won, Chad Whelan was second, Jeffrey Rustrelli was third, blah, 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 whatever.
Sure.
I try to actually capture in words what I saw.
Yep.
And the person, one of the biggest guys in the industry, Jason Wygant, came up to me and he was just like, I can tell when I'm reading your race reports. He goes, I don't even follow ATV Motocross until he has to do the voiceovers. He said, but when I read your race reports, he goes, I feel like I'm sitting there watching the race. You do a great job. And here I'm just muddling through it. I'm not no great writer or anything.
Sure.
But I'm trying to show the intensity, and whatnot. And hopefully, people get it. I don't think that they show the series enough love. I think there's and there has been way back in the days when WPSA was around, there was this whole motocross series versus WPSA, and then WPSA goes belly up, and then, everybody's got to go back to the motocross. You remember there was a guy who used to put out a newspaper, and it seemed like all he lived on was getting, like John Natale, to badmouth the series. In the next issue, it was somebody else badmouthing the series.
Yep.
And, when confronted, he was like, well, I just want to make positive change. And I'm like, you're doing nothing but causing angst. you're doing nothing but causing problems. I didn't even work for the series then.
Sure.
I was speaking as a fan of ATV motocross,
Mm-hmm.
and it almost led to a fist fight.
Yeah. Well, because you care about it so much, which I can totally relate with. I mean, that's like, I know that there's dudes that we cover in the pro class that don't necessarily, like, maybe they might not be fans of mine or fans of mine from when we raced each other or whatever. But at the same time, I cover them just the same. And I love it, like but it's because I love the sport so much.
Mm-hmm. Well, people have no clue that, what these guys put on the line. Even the amateur, a guy showing up who just got done working 50 hours for the week, and the week before that he worked 90 so he could afford to take off to go to this race.
Exactly.
He goes down turn one or over a tabletop or something like that, and he breaks a leg. He's screwed.
Yeah.
My son's a perfect example. I mean, a month ago I was at Texas for the ATVMX, and I get up the next morning and I'm driving home. And I get the call, Cody, is on the line, get ready to start. And then the next 15 minutes later, he hadn't come around, and then find out he broke his leg. He's been a month off work. Broken leg, plates, rods, destroyed ankle, Thank God he works for a bigger company that just assumes that stuff, no big deal. But, the guy who's turning wrenches as a mechanic at, a car dealership or something along those lines, a true blue collar profession.
Yeah.
He's jacked over what, 450B, or an age class. And you can't explain that to people. People say, oh yeah, it's so cool, but they don't understand the level of commitment these guys have. And when you get in the pro ranks, it's just nuts.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, for sure. And
I mean, you've been there, you've experienced it. Like, I'm looking at a picture right now of Chad and Joel standing there behind the starting area, just looking at me. And I did it because, of course, Chad's like 2 feet taller than Joel. And then I reached down and picked up 2 sticks, and I walked over and I handed them 2 sticks. I didn't say anything. I just backed up, lifted my camera, and I instantly got them crossing sticks with smiles. I didn't tell them to do that. They didn't decide to do that.
Right.
These guys are competitive. That the first thing they want to do is sword fight.
Right. So I saw this photo, Ken, and it was already planning to myself. I'm like, I got to use this for our episode cover for this one. It was a must.
It was awesome. I mean, now I've seen Joel pull off the track mad at Chad. I've seen Chad pull off mad at Joel. Rich this year is just ready to beat somebody's rear end. He came off in Texas behind Bryce Ford, and he said, Bryce said something to him, and Rastrelli said, this is going to be a long season. And this is before they even had their helmets off. And I was like, uh-oh, Rastrelli's, he's getting fired up. But, Bryce is just, he's there. I mean, I don't know what it is. I hate to be going all over the place talking, but I don't know what it is with Bryce. I mean, I'm good friends with the Fords, love the kids, I mean, they are kids to me, even though one's married now. Robin's always looking after me, John, always tease him about voting for Joe Biden. He didn't, by the way. But
sure, he loves that.
Yeah. He made it a point a couple years ago to show me all his Trump flags at his things. I thought that was awesome.
Oh gosh.
But yeah, I don't know what it is with Ford. I mean, I know he likes to show off. He's constantly looking around when he's 20 feet in the air and, playing to the fans and Joe Cool. But he's got races that he shows up and it's almost like he's holding back. It's like, go. I'm watching him through the lens and I'm like, you're faster than this. If he could just find that little teeny bit more speed, Hatrick's going to have problems.
Well, I think that he is the guy, right? As we kind of talk about some of the racing that we've been seeing, he's the guy that could make that step, it seems to me, and really be the one that pushes Joel possibly in the years to come. I do think that we have seen Bryce mature. I think that this weekend alone, was kind of a good representation of that when we saw him run second in that first moto for the majority of it. He moved up to second and then looked like he was going to be the guy that was going to finish P2 there. I remember literally on the play-by-play on Facebook posting, it looks like, Bryce Ford's rode a masterful race. It looks like he's going to be, hold on to this. Then Chad gets him at the finish. And, I was standing in the tower thinking that was a hell of a race. And then we saw something very similar in the second moto where he would eventually give way to Chad, but it is Chad. And I'm thinking to myself, if it wasn't for two guys who are the Ricky Carmichael and James Stewart of ATV racing, two literal legends, two of the greatest ever, if not the two greatest ever, Bryce, 4 years into his pro career would be the guy. And so I'm like, it's hard to compare, but looking forward, I mean, he is very much following in the footsteps of, Joel Hatrick years ago.
Well, when you watch Joel Hatrick, I mean, Hatrick's in his prime right now. Hatrick,
absolutely.
And I'm prime age-wise. I don't care how old you are, how young you are. He has everything at his disposal right now to just lay waste to anybody.
Yep.
I mean, you would think he couldn't go faster, and yet he does.
He's got seconds in the tank, Ken. He's got seconds in the tank if he were to need it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's just out front. He's hitting all his marks. He's, just watching him go through that back, I don't even call it a roller section before you go up the big hill. It's Godzilla Hill.
Yeah.
He just seemed to get faster and faster and faster through there.
Yeah.
Chad, man, I love Chad Weenan. It's been wild watching him go through the factories and then, finally settle with Yamaha and come up, and be a champion. Multi-time champion.
Yeah.
But he's finding speed, but there's just no way anybody is going to catch Hatrick. And I don't say that because Hatrick's my favorite. I have no favorites. As long as they all come off the track safe, I'm good. I don't care who wins.
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't see, it's like Sunset. We're getting ready to head up there, not this weekend, next weekend.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. Chad's home track. It's sandy. It's rough. It's this and that. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm calling it for Hatrick just simply because he is so dialed. His quad works so well, and he is just feeding that thing. I think the only thing that could beat Joel Hatrick's Joel Hatrick. I could be wrong, but it's just like Walker Fowler for years. You just weren't going to touch him. Didn't matter if he got a bad start, a good start. 2 hours from now, he's coming across the finish line.
Yeah. Well, that Joel Hatrick, confidence is such a powerful thing. And he's going to the line right now thinking, as long as I make it through the first corner, I'm not getting beat.
Yeah. Well, but it's like the whole shot with Moto 2, they gave it to Australia. Bryce Ford got the whole shot. I got the picture. I was using a big lens, so it's not a pretty picture, but it showed, as long as I got who crossed the line first, my job's done.
Yeah.
And I hate to see Rastrelli, hey, it is what it is. It was all pretty damn equal. I'll give you that.
Mm-hmm.
But, even Rastrelli, who thinks he's at his prime or at his best, is missing a step somewhere because Hatrick's just getting faster. And as a 52-year-old man, I can tell you that, and you, I'm sure you feel this now that you've been out of it a little while. Every couple of years, you feel yourself going down a little bit.
For sure.
I mean, you're still in good shape. You know what I mean? You still could go out and run 5 miles or bicycle 5 miles. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And Rastrelli might feel like he's great. I mean, he's defeated all these little health problems that kept popping up. But what happened in the meantime was that Hatrick has not had an issue one. He's just been on fire. Chad, I'm glad I wasn't at the race. I hate seeing him get hurt at second round when he broke his collarbone.
Yeah.
That destroyed his season. I mean, the things so close as they always are, that destroyed his season mentally. You never know it. Talk to him.
He's still, from talking to him, Ken, and I'm sure you get this sense too, but he still very much believes He like in his mind, and I know that that's what makes him alpha, next level, all-time great competitor like he is. But he absolutely believes that the season is not over.
No, I always ask him when I see him at the race. When I get there, I go up, see him, shake his hand, and I'm like, "How are we looking? Good. After first qualifier, how did you do? Oh, I qualified second. Just making a few little changes. We're going to get her right. You will not find defeat around him. He
Never.
just refuses, and that's what it takes to be a champion, whether you have the number one plate or not. It's your attitude, how you treat people, the aura, I guess you want to say, you put around yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to know that, man, this guy's beating the hell out of me. How do you beat him? And I even made a comment on Instagram. I was like, with a stick before the race, maybe.
I saw that. Yep, I saw that.
5 years ago, I'd beat him with a stick. Now, I don't know. He's liable to take your whipping and bring it back to you. I think Joel's got, everything stays equal. I think he's got another at least 2 seasons in him where he's just the dominant rider.
Mm-hmm.
And then, we're going to see age catch up to Joel Hatrick, which is good if you look at it from a historical kind of deal.
Well, we want it to be competitive.
Yes. It's not good if you're just, well, hell, Hatrick's getting old. He's almost, mid-30s, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Chad's 38. I mean, and he's still out there competing at the level he is. That's amazing.
It is. It's unreal. And then you think either of those top 2 guys, you love them or you hate them. But
how can anybody hate?
I agree. But there's people that cheer against number 44 because he's been so successful. Right. Like that's something that you and I have both seen over the last decade, that people just, that's what people do in America, right? Like you build them up and then you tear them down. Like that's what society does for whatever reason. But think about what it would be like if he wasn't there. Joel Hatrick would be 30 seconds ahead in every race for the last 5 years or more.
We were laughing before the race. I was like, good Lord, what do you want to do? Like make him start backwards, let you guys have almost a lap, turn him loose. If we were joking about it, everybody was laughing, but there's a lot of truth to it.
Yeah, there is.
Like, when you get a bad start and you're 5th or 6th, back in the day, that meant you were 5th or 6th. Joel can come from 5, 6, 7, 8 deep, roll right to the front, take the lead, win the race, and be hardly breathing hard at the end.
Yeah.
I mean, that's Joel Hatrick right now.
It's unreal.
Chad is just a physical oddball. I mean, he's so tall. You don't realize how tall he is till you stand beside him and you're short.
Right.
But he really pays attention to his nutrition. He's able to run with Joel, but I just don't see how he's going to be able to keep Joel fended off.
Mm-hmm.
Even if he was to get out front, Joel's coming.
Yeah. Well, I think, with Chad, like obviously he's figured out what he needs to do to be able to compete at the level he's competing at 38 years old, right? Like that's something that he's figured out over the years. We have not seen, since he's been on a Yamaha and figured all this stuff out for the past 10 to 11, 12 years now, we've never seen us get to the 6th race of the year and had him not win a race yet. So if it's going to happen, and I know that the collarbone is still a factor. He doesn't feel like 100%. It is sore. I know those things.
Sure.
If it's going to happen, it's going to happen at Sunset Ridge. But I just, like you said, and I love Chad just the same as you do, I just don't see a way that Joel Hatrick, like, I don't think that anybody can go faster than he's going right now, even if your name is Chad Wienen. I don't think it's possible.
No, you're exactly right. And that's kind of what I was trying to say, but you put the words better. Joel is just so fast right now. I don't know, good Lord, what's it take? Nobody has that answer.
Yeah.
If you had that answer and the talent, then who do you look at? Do you say Chad's going to do it? Say Bryce going to do it? I think Bryce acts timid around when he gets up front. I think he's not as aggressive as he could be. But we're talking open wheel racing. You get too aggressive, you end on your side.
Of course, yeah.
And nobody wants to race with somebody like that.
No. And I do think that we saw, like, there was one pass. It was the first moto around that left-hander in front of kind of the crowd there after the start. It was mid-moto, and Bryce Ford made an absolutely picture perfect sliding move up the inside of Brandon Hogue. And it was amazing. It was a sight to see. It was perfect.
Nice.
So I do think that, I mean, he's got it in him, right? But yes, and it's probably like natural. I mean, I was never Bryce Ford, but even being me, like if I was near Wienen, Natali, Hatrick, Upperman, even like Thomas Brown, any of those guys, I was like, man, like these guys are greats. Like I don't want to mess with their race day. And I do think,
Right.
and I've said that before on these shows, Bryce Ford is at that level that he doesn't need to feel that way, but maybe he does a little bit, like he's grown up watching these dudes in the pro class basically his whole life.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to ask him, put it to him like that, just because I think he just needs a little push. Like, yeah, we know you got it in you, that it's not the lack of talent. It's not the lack of equipment. You just got to go out there and do it.
At the same time, and I mentioned this comment a little bit earlier, but I was standing in the tower, around a lot of his crew, right? And like, yes, you're bummed that Chad Wienen passes you, but I was literally sitting there thinking, it's Chad Wienen that passed you. Like, not some stooge, not even some dude that's on your career path right now. Like it was Chad Wienen that, like he's got so much muscle memory that it's like he could probably make that move in his sleep. And I mean, no disrespect in saying that. Right. So yeah, I truly think all the stuff that Bryce is learning from racing with those top two. I mean, look at Bryce. He's been on the podium every race this year, but one. And won one, and all the stuff he's been doing, leading laps, winning motos, winning an overall this year, podium, he was on a 4-race podium streak coming into last race at High Point. So all new things that he had never done, all the stuff he's adding to his bag of tricks right now, learning from those guys, being on the Quad Cross of Nations team, winning over there, all of that stuff, man, it's just like adding abilities, adding things to his bag of tricks. I think it's really going to pay off in the long run.
I still have a feeling he's flying under the radar.
Okay.
I just don't think, you know what I mean? Like when you talk about Hatrick, when you talk about Chad Wienen, there's guarantees in what you're saying. You can prove what you're saying. With Bryce, it's a flash of greatness. It was a pass here. It was awesome. He's got to go out there and take the race. Is Joel Hatrick as fast with somebody on his rear end dogging him, or is he as fast, or is, you let him go and he's got 30 seconds on you? Yeah. I mean, that's how I'd go after Hatrick or Walker Fowler or any of the guys that are top. It's like, I'm going to get, clamp one of your shirt tails and you're not getting rid of me, force those mistakes, when he's out there. I guess there's something to be said. If you're all alone, your mind starts to wander, but
sure.
Joel's just a unnatural.
Right.
I mean, his brain operates one speed. But if he would go out there, if he could get on Joel Hatrick early and dog him, even if he got second or even fell back to third, he's going to start making Hatrick think about things. I can't do this. I better save a little energy, maybe different times during the moto would be the time to put pressure on it. I mean, that is observation. I'm not
absolutely.
a great racer.
No, absolutely. But you've been around it. You know what you're talking about. Everything you're saying makes sense. I do think, and I wonder this, and I guess I'll propose this idea to you, or this thought. So last year, the way last year ended, and the things that we saw last year, we saw Brandon Hogue nearly win the opener. We saw him damn near win Ironman. He came one corner away and his bike failed on him, and that cost him Ironman overall. We saw, so that's possibly 2 overalls he missed out on. He blew up running in second at Briarcliff. So he was a guy, especially talking to him last year, that thought like, he's like, I don't know if I can say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. He said to me, I know what Joel's doing. I know I can mimic it. And I think I can do some things better in his preparation or whatever. So I wonder in a different world, and I'm glad Brandon's got the opportunity he did. I know he wanted to go to a Yamaha. I know he felt like it was the right move for him. He's running a lot of the same components, all those things. But I remember telling him last year, are you sure you want to do this, man? Are you sure you want to do this? Because the music thing was really, really good, especially for, I know he blew up some motors and like there was stuff that happened. Don't get me wrong, but the program was really, really good. And those guys are really, really meticulous about what they do. So
Right.
then, so I think to myself, and I hope that we get back to, where Brandon on his new team, Westland Motorsports, I think is what it's called. I hope on the Yamaha that he gets to the version of himself that we saw last year. But I just wonder to myself in a different universe, and maybe the Honda couldn't, I'm not saying he could have went Joel Hatrick's speed, but if we could have just rolled Brandon Hogue from last year over into this year on that same program, and I would have loved to have seen what that looks like, because I think that, like we knew, I said on shows coming into the year that there was going to be growing pains for a new team and a new program and a new machine. There always is. But I would have loved to have seen what last year's Brandon Hogue looked like in this mix as well, because he was a guy mentally, and we know how fierce he is and how competitive he is and how determined he is and how, hard, headstrong, all whatever words you want to use. But he's a guy that mentally, at least in the off season, I remember saying to myself, like, he's a guy that has it, that literally could be a guy that pushes the dudes at the front. I really hope that we see Brandon Hogue get back to that. Cause again, mentally, and that's kind of what you're hitting on with Bryce, mentally, right. Brandon Hogue has it.
Yeah. But again, see, he's not flying under the radar. He fell off the radar. He was there, he was up front, he was fighting, doing great. Then he makes an all-season change, comes back with on the Yamaha. And I don't care what you ride, you pretty much only got really one choice nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
But how long is it going to take him to adapt? His riding style isn't that much different than the other top riders I see, where Hatrick went right to a Yamaha, even though there was some, issues with him, whether, he'll admit it or not, it has to be. The bike's longer, you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. Different quad. Yeah.
Way more powerful, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If he's coming off that track and that bike's running at 100%, then he's got to ask himself what needs fixed. Is it the quad? Is it me? Because I don't get to talk to Brandon a lot. He's real shy, it seems like.
Yeah. Yep. I get that a lot from people.
Yeah.
Yep.
And when I cruise through the pits, I'm just walking along, looking at things, picking up little chit chats here and there, talking.
Yeah.
I don't spend my entire day in the pro pits, but he seems focused and driven. It's just, and I know he's got the confidence. He might be another one. Just needs to come on, get up there and run with these guys. If you're going to blow the bike up, then blow it up. We'll figure out what went wrong. We'll fix it. It won't happen again. I mean, that's what I would tell him. But I'm not. It's easy for me to say it now, and of course, somebody go, well, you don't know. This is really what happened. Well, maybe it did, but you didn't make it public, so
Mm-hmm.
the rest of us are you have to guess. But I mean, he's got it. But until he shows it, he's just another name on the gate.
Again, I hope that we see it. I mean, last year this is when he got hot last year at this time is when I actually at Sunset Ridge, I remember vividly him saying, hopefully we can turn this season around. Well, fast forward 5 races or whatever, 4 or 5 races, 6 races, whatever it was at the time. He finishes 3rd in points and is super impressive and is our Digging Deep Most Improved Pro and all of those things. He was awesome down the stretch. So, I mean, he's another guy that the season isn't over on him, but I really hope that we see it turn around for him, because I also know we all know how hard he is on himself. And for his own sake, I want him to do well so that it all comes together for him.
Well, maybe it's not an issue of putting a foot in his rear end. Maybe it's an issue of telling him to go out and have some fun. Don't take it so serious.
Yeah, and that could be too.
I wish that they were a little more open on their social media.
Yeah.
And I think you're more real if you just tell the truth and just say, hey, my race sucked. It wasn't the bike. The bike was fine. It wasn't the track, because obviously everybody else had a great time. Me, I just sucked, and I'm going to work on that.
Yeah. Well, and I think that that's what I really enjoy about some of the conversations on here. They might not tell me that, that about an actual event, but we had Jeffrey Rastrelli on and told us the stuff that he was dealing with before the season, that his head wasn't in a good place because they were changing things just days before the opener. Same thing. We're going to talk to pre-recorded a conversation with Nick Gennusa, and he talked about stuff that was going on behind the scenes. And we know stuff he was dealing with last year and things that I love to hear some of those things because, again, it might change your perspective completely on somebody's race, on somebody's season. I love to know what people have going on behind the scenes because it changes the whole story. The whole context changes. And that's something that I really enjoy what we're doing here because that this isn't something that necessarily existed before Digging Deep,
Yeah, you get to hear it. I mean, There's times driving, to or from a race, and I'll just see you post a link and I'll listen to it. And it's like, well, that's pretty dang cool. I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
That's one reason why I don't go out and just talk a bunch of crap, because you just never know what somebody's story is until you know.
Sure.
People are like, oh, he's getting lazy. He's only shooting pros. He's doing this. People, I'm not lazy by any stretch of the word. I just physically can't do it anymore.
Yeah. Right.
It's everything is a learning process. And it's just like these racers, they plan, they practice, they have, goals, and you do everything you can, and you still come up short.
Mm-hmm.
My thing is I come up short, I end up in the hospital.
Yeah.
ICU, as a matter of fact. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an expert at getting out of intensive care. Yeah. I found that out. I left it, not this year. I guess it was last year. I honestly don't remember, but, Rodney Tomlin was walking across by Racer TV, and I said, Rodney, I'm sick. I've got to, I can't make it to the media center. Will you drop my vest off? And he said, yeah, you all right? I was like, I just don't feel good. Got in the truck there, 2 hours north. A couple of people called just to see how I was doing because I just kind of left. And felt pretty good. Got the race report written, got my pictures out, and went to go to bed. And next thing I know, I was in the bathroom just throwing up blood. Repacked all my gear. Yeah, because I knew I was going to hospital. I repacked all my gear. I cleaned the bathroom up. Went to the local hospital. They put me in intensive care. I think I got 8 or 9 pints of blood or units of blood, whatever they call it. They did surgery on me. And I came out of surgery, my wife said around 12:30. They called her. And at 4:30, I woke up. And me and this curly-headed male nurse got into it, and I checked myself out of the hospital. So I left there, and my wife was like, well, just come home, please come home. And I don't remember the conversation, but I said, 16 to Macon. That's where the GNCC is. I got people there, and that's the last you heard of me for hours.
Oh, sure. You knew you could get there, you could get help because
I could help. And I was, that's 3 hours away, but I made it. I made it there, and I had to go back in the hospital the next day and more surgery, and they wouldn't let me shoot the race. I showed up, but they didn't let me shoot the race. They figured I better go home. But I waited till go home when everybody else was going home. That way I have help all the way.
Sure. Yep.
That says a lot about what this, entire racing community will do for you.
Yeah.
My wife has never had so many emails and texts and phone calls. And she's like, I was talking to people I didn't even know, they were telling me they'll do this. And just, that's a good feeling.
Yeah.
And the series was really good about it. And that's what makes me happy, when you work a little harder for these guys to get them hopefully the attention they need. The series is fully behind it.
Yeah.
I mean, I have never heard the head of this series tell me anything negative about it other than how can we improve? What can we do to make it better? Now there is business sides to it, of course.
Yep.
Just because you want something to happen doesn't mean you can just throw money wildly at it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's been a pretty wild ride.
Yeah, like you said at the start of this conversation, I'm just glad that you got to a place where, not only are you here with me and discussing it and all that stuff, but you're still at the races, you're still shooting them, again, like it was in the social media side of Digging Deep is a huge part of what we do. Like I really, really enjoy that because not everybody wants to sit down and listen to a couple hours of coverage, right? That's not for everybody, but that we can cover a snippet of somebody's story or at least their weekend or whatever on the social media side of things, but without photos, like it's relatively meaningless. And for you, making your stuff available for people like me and Tremelin does the same thing, which I'm super, super thankful for. Both of you were like, hey, whatever you want to use, whatever you need, go ahead and use it. And that is awesome for me because I don't know that I don't know what it would cost, right? To contract, somebody for me to use their stuff for a season or whatever. I don't know what that cost would be. Either way, that's not the way that the conversation went with somebody like you. And that means a ton to me. So kind of going back to what I had said earlier, when you weren't at the races, that was really, really tough. Like I had to find other ways to make it work and photos to post and stuff. And that stunk, and your stuff is on such a high level, we know what we're getting from Ken Hill photos. And yeah, it was just tough not to have that. And it really did give me a whole new appreciation. It's the same thing that I say for, when we're watching Joel Hatrick or Chad Wienen, like with Chad, he's 38 years old. Like I'm want to appreciate the time that we have still watching him compete. And same thing with you, Ken. I don't take for granted at all the photos, the race reports, the coverage, the care that you have for these people and the riders in the sport. Again, I don't take that for granted. I don't overlook that. Just like I don't want to overlook how good Joel Hatrick is right now. Like it's so easy to just say, yep, Joel's 15 seconds out front. That's no surprise. Like that isn't just a given either, So just tying that all together, man, I appreciate everything you do so much. And especially for me, again, it's just so awesome to have this conversation because so much of what you have been saying is kind of something that I try to mirror, right? Is with Digging Deep. I literally just want everybody that I want these riders, I want the sport to be 1% better because of the stuff that I'm doing and, or stuff that we're doing at Digging Deep. Some of the motivation, and this is a conversation or a topic that I've talked about time and time again. I told people this last weekend at Ironman. A lot of my motivation with Digging Deep from day one was as a rider, so my best finishes in the pro class were 6th or 7th, and nobody really knows about that when you're a 6th or 7th place or 8th place rider. And if you finish that, it's just there was a little bit of a void there, right? Like it's nobody's fault necessarily. And that's why I really try to give everybody, everybody's name in the pro class gets mentioned. We try to mention the people that really flash in the amateur classes, just like you. I wish I could do more, but you can only spread yourself so thin. But I really hope, and that's one of my biggest motivating factors. I just want everybody to get what they deserve. I want, when you kind of touched on it before, dude, working up, 40, 50, 60 hours a week and all that stuff. Like I love the fact that we can tell, at least fill in the story a little bit on, Wesley Wolf and why he might be different. His situation is maybe different than dudes he's racing against, like, Logan Stanfield. Logan Stanfield might be, down at Deckers in the preseason, riding nonstop while Wesley is on top of a roof somewhere. And then he's racing against Kevin Saar, who's from a 5-time European champion, and he's added to that mix. And I just, again, love everything you do and how much you care. And I'm just trying to emulate kind of the same thing, just in a different manner, but I care about it just the same. And I want the best for these guys. And I want the best for the people that love taking in the content, that there's like, that's another thing where it started at the beginning is I'd be in the race shop listening to dirt bike podcasts, because in my mind I could translate what they're talking about to ATVs, and there was no ATV podcast out there to listen to. And I love the fact when somebody says, yeah, we listen every week on the way to the races. We listen in the race shop when we're wrenching on the quads or whatever. We, me and my dad listen, and that's how we, get the insight for our fantasy team next week. Like all of those little things means so much to me, and it's very much in the realm of the conversation you and I have just had.
Well, I mean, it's you're doing the best you can with what you got, and trying to find a way to tell these guys stories. I mean, I admire it. I think it's pretty cool. A lot of people just don't understand the differences between, like, say, what Gloop does. He's got to go up and get interviews with these guys for the TV show, and then he's got his own thing with what's it called, The Ride.
The Ride, yeah.
Yeah. And I literally live so far back in the sticks, I just don't have the internet to watch all that stuff.
Oh, okay, sure.
Not that I don't want to, but after 15 minutes of something buffering, I'm wasting.
I'm over it.
Yeah. So when I'm on the road out on the highway, sometimes I catch them. I can't watch it, but I listen to it.
Yep.
And it's good. It's good for the sport.
Absolutely.
It's good for the sponsors, which I wish there were more of. Remember what I said earlier about everybody from the pro to the amateur has to run this race like a business?
Yep.
Same thing. You never set out and did anything super great in the pro class where everybody knows Cody Jansen's name, right?
Yep.
But I guarantee you have had more of an impact because you are a good ambassador to your sponsors. And I watched that over the years. And I watch that today. I get these companies that pay me to take pictures of their riders. And I get phone calls and emails and texts. Hey, how was so-and-so? How was their pit? They want to know.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Because they're whatever money they're investing in it, they want return on that.
Mm-hmm.
But what return are we giving them?
Yeah, well, you saying that, that's something I'm super proud of. Something I was conscious of for a lot of years. A lot of people that supported me made it possible. Wouldn't have been possible without the support of a lot of people there. But yeah, I always tried to be an ambassador. It's because I grew up dreaming of being Chad Wienen, being Dustin Wimmer, Josh Creamer, John Natale, Doug Gust. That's what I wanted to be, and I never got there, right? But didn't mean that I wasn't going to take everything I did as seriously as I possibly could. And still today, again, I never made it to be even at the level that I was super proud of, I made it mid-pack pro. I'm not proud to say that. I wanted to be a champion. I wanted to get a top 3. I wanted to get a top 5, but I love what some of the voids that we're filling with this. I really, really do. Because again, without digging deep, and I don't want to make it sound bigger than it is, but without digging deep, there would be a lot less content out there for people that love it, like I do, like I did growing up. I love the fact that, there's a kid out there on a lawnmower right now listening to this, or working on his bike, or working on his quad, or in the gym, or driving to the practice track. I love all of those things. I love the fact that we have the fantasy game, and the riders literally talk to me about the fantasy game every weekend, every week. That guys come up to them and say, man, you're on my fantasy team this week. I love that. I love that it fits in with Digging Deep so well, because again, my mission statement from the beginning was to make it so that people were paying attention to Adam Ulrich the same way or best they can as they are to Chad Wienen, Joel Hatrick, Bryce Ford. With the fantasy game, you're literally watching those guys. It's the dudes that are at maybe the tail end of the pack that are the guys that make the difference in the game, that make the difference in somebody winning or not winning that week. I adore that. I adore that. Right. People look at Logan Stanfield as a weekly staple to their fantasy team, and they pay attention to a guy who Logan does really well, but they're paying attention every weekend to a guy that's in 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. That isn't something that was necessarily happening before. This conversation and where I'm at is all over the place, but I wish the sport was where we all want it to be, where you and I both wish it was. but I'm proud of what we're doing for sure.
Yeah, well, of course. And like I said, I wouldn't support you the way that I have over the years if I didn't think you were worthy of it. Sometimes you don't go after the number 1, you go after the number 6 or 7, because he is the guy who's going to do the hard work, he's going to roll up his sleeves, going to get it done. You know, like I said, I'm a business guy.
Yep.
My dad was a horse trader, and I love making money.
Yep.
I love having success. And sometimes my success comes from someone else because I push them in that direction.
Sure. Yep.
You know, I maybe I critiqued them pretty hard, but I knew they could do better.
Yeah.
You know, and if I went up to him and said, hey, can I offer you a critique? You know, can I do this without hurting your feelings? Sorry, dude, I was raised, you know, a few generations before you. I'm gonna use what I know and what I've learned to manipulate you to do better.
Absolutely.
Because if you're out here, and while I'm in this industry and while I'm in this sport, and if you're out here, then damn it, you're going to do things, you know, the way, to the level I think they should be.
Mm-hmm.
You start something new, you know, you come up with something new, that's great, but you can do better. It would be like a pro rider, you know, guy hanging back in 10th place, you know he could do better, but he's too busy drinking beer, you know, in between motos, you know, and it's like, dude, stop drinking 12-pack between motos, you know, maybe jog a few miles a week, you know, you're going to do good, you know.
You're better than this. Yeah,
you're better than this. Well, I haven't done my ma, where's my meatloaf? But,
Mom, the meatloaf.
Yeah, meatloaf. I don't know what she's doing. But yeah, I mean, it's just, you know, you've got to have fun with it. And I apologize to anybody that, you know, I've screwed with over the years, because like I said, I will literally walk up to you with a straight face and tell you something and walk away and let you think I'm the biggest jerk a-hole in the world. But I can also go and look at the results of that and smile and go, yep, I knew he could do it. You know, and I don't want credit for it because they did it, but maybe they're not being told what they need to be told. You know, the picture quality. If you've got just a decent camera and lens, you can shoot with me or anybody else out there. I don't even use a professional camera body anymore. I mean, I just use run-of-the-mill, you know, consumer cameras because I destroy them because of the conditions, you know, that I have to shoot in.
Of course.
And it's better to replace them every year than it is to replace an $8,000 camera that might last a year and a half.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
So, I mean, you know, you don't have to have gear envy or, oh, he only takes good pictures because he's got, you know, great cameras or whatever. Trust me, my stuff is junk. We don't even sell my stuff. When it's done. But I mean, yeah, that's what I'm saying. You don't have to have the best of everything. And that's kind of what I'm getting at with the series and racing in general. We don't have to have the best of everything, but we can do better.
You're wanting it to be more. You're wanting it to be better for all the people you care about. You're wanting it to be what it's at its core, it's capable of being. You know, like it's a gnarly sport. It's badass.
Who knows what it's capable of? Nobody's ever approached it with a true business model.
Right.
You know, look, the pros at the GNCCs are always at the podium throwing out stuff. Like if they get on the podium, you throw out maybe some hats, some koozies, whatever.
Sure.
You don't see hardly any of that at the ATVMX race.
Sure.
But if a kid walked up and you handed them, what are you interested in? Oh, I like four-wheelers. You know, and you handed them a pamphlet for a Yamaha mini four-wheeler, or maybe the guy's 14, you know, the kid's 14, hand him one for a YSG. And it's free. It's free. Yamaha will send you that stuff.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You know, you imagine calling your manufacturer and going, hey, so-and-so, hey, I need some brochures. What for? Well, I want to start handing them out. Yeah, it's the little things like that. If you can get that guy to, wow, that was really cool. I mean, Chad Weenan told me, you know, he gave you that brochure. Well, and of course, as a kid, I mean, this goes into the business mode. As a kid, now you've given him a brochure with a four-wheeler on it.
Yeah.
He is not going to leave that.
Right. Yeah, he's going to work. Yeah, exactly. Right. I hope that you're planting some seeds, Ken, right now in people's heads. I really do. And you can best believe that I'm going to make a call as a Yamaha ambassador myself. I'm going to make a call to my Yamaha rep and get some brochures, even if we leave them, even if they're on the, on the table outside the tent at the races. Anything we can do to fill some gaps. I love the idea. It's all about connections, right? It's like about same thing I think about with social media. It's eliminating multiple clicks. It's leading people to the source easily. That's something that I take into consideration every day with digging deep stuff. You don't want it to be complicated for them to find our podcasts. Same exact thing that you're talking about with this. It leads somebody who is, every weekend a dad brings a son or a daughter to the races that have never seen it before. We don't have tons of fans, but that happens every weekend. And you're trying to fill the gaps, to make the connections from, hey, we're going to go watch an ATV race, to how do I get an ATV and get my son or daughter on one and start this whole process like it did for me 30 years ago.
Well, and like I said, it maybe that kid does get a mini four-wheeler. Maybe he never races. Right. But once you know yourself, and everybody listening, once you get into this, it's got a hold of you.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Bit by the bone.
Yeah. You've got to ride. Next thing you know, dad buys one. That's how it works.
And it comes full circle, right? Because if there was enough people locally, if there was enough people banging on the promoters' doors of local tracks across the country for a place for ATVs to ride, if there was enough of them, they would take our money. They would. It's just the fact that tracks everywhere open up to having a quad ride on a Wednesday night or a Sunday afternoon, and 3 or 4 quads show up, and then the dirt bikes aren't happy, and it's not worth it for them to upset the dirt bike guys to only have a couple quads.
Right.
But,
well, that's a whole nother show talking about.
Oh,
I could definitely raise some eyebrows with what I could say about that subject, but
yeah.
But no, I mean, it's just that one thing you can apply that to other things, and that's how you get the outside support.
Yeah, exactly.
Walsh is only going to be able to do so much for so many. Auburn, same way. Lone Star, they can only do so much.
Right.
So we've got to look outside the industry, and this has been talked at a million times before. The series has gone after outside sponsors. It never seems to work out. But damn it, don't tell me you can't do something. If a company sees return, and sometimes it's not even about return as far as product sold or dollar, it's about brand awareness.
Mm-hmm.
This is where, like I said, we're not thinking everyone as a business. There's got to be a push to get this thing into the mainstream sports side. And that's a whole nother department.
It is. And it's a whole nother conversation that we're going to have to save for another day. But I think that's why so many people, right, going back now more than 15 years, why so many people were devastated by, the existence of the WPSA for 2 years on the ATV side. And then it folded for that exact reason. They brought it to the mainstream. I don't know what the numbers looked like, but it was growing, and it had energy drinks involved, and it had factory teams involved. And there was a lot of money getting slung around there for a little while. I've said this before that, there was dudes getting paid that were factory affiliated that I was beating on the weekend as a 14-year-old at the local track. And they, dudes I like, dudes that would go on to be good riders, do well, like Russell Shoemaker. He rode for 2 factory teams, was at least affiliated with Suzuki, rode for Kawasaki. When I was still riding a youth quad, we were riding together, with Doug, and I was going faster than Russell Shoemaker. So I've told the story before that we got baited in. Dudes like Joel and Jeffrey and those guys have been, went on to do really well for themselves, especially Joel. But us from that age era got baited in because there was a lot of money getting thrown around. Right when we were coming of age, when we would have got affiliated with one of those teams or whatever. And then it all folded right when it was time for us to get on 450s. Like I remember literally, and maybe it was a pipe dream, But I remember, winning the 300 title in 2007 and thinking, man, that was my break. Now, somebody's going to come calling and, we're going to get a bunch of support and I'm going to be on my way to riding for one of these teams in the pro class a few years from now. And maybe I was never cut out for that. That might be the case, but we got baited in. And then my parents spent every dime they had to keep me in the sport for as long as they could until I could, pull my own weight. And it's crazy how things happen. And to review all this. And like you said, there's about 5 conversations there that we could talk about for hours and hours and hours. But Ken, I really do appreciate all that you do for the sport and all your dedication, all your care. We got to do this some more. We didn't even barely get to any of the racing this weekend, but I don't want to keep you anymore. But this was awesome. This was as good a content as we've ever put out there. So, man, if you're up for more conversations like this, we're gonna have to do more of this as the season and seasons go on here.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I think my wife is ready for me to go out and feed the animals.
I told you I wasn't going to take too much of your time, and now here we are, an hour and 45 minutes later. So,
and still no meatloaf. I don't know what you're doing back there.
Oh my gosh!
But yeah, man, it was good chat, and I'll have to call back in at some point. And as long as my health holds, I'll be doing Loretta Lynn's this year.
Okay.
Maybe we'll talk about how that could equal something for quads down the road if somebody would put it together.
Sure.
The entire way that whole build-up system works, it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
From 50 riders all the way up till they turn pro. It's definitely a different thing than the ATV guys are used to. But yeah, definitely something to talk to about in the future.
Yeah, Ken, I think, like I said, there's a lot of topics that that I'll have to jot down in my notebook as I edit this thing. But again, I can't thank you enough for your time. I appreciate it so much. I appreciate all you do. I appreciate your support of Digging Deep and allowing me to use your stuff. And like I said, I am not afraid to pay like I do from seemingly every other day for the past couple of weeks. I've been, stealing stuff, finding something I want. So I want to be able to post the highest quality version of a photo or whatever. So I appreciate it all, Ken, all the years of everything that you've done. I appreciate it so much. And again, I look forward to doing more of this.
All right. Guarantee it.
Awesome, buddy. Thanks so much. And we'll see you at Sunset Ridge, right?
Yep. Good Lord willing.
Awesome, Ken. I appreciate it so much. And we'll talk soon. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, buddy. That is series photographer Ken Hill right here on the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast presented by Valvoline. Thanks so much, Ken. Man, what a show, what a night, and what an awesome cast for this one. Ken Hill was amazing. Looking forward to doing more with him in the future. But before we do our outro, I did not forget, we got to do our SSI Decals Top 5 storylines heading into round 6 at Sunset Ridge, Walnut, Illinois, our favorite here in the Midwest, of course. Storyline number 5 that we're watching is, do we see a bounce back ride from Jeffrey Rastrelli? Obviously, we know that he doesn't have a good taste in his mouth after that 6th overall this past weekend. Could be a bounce back ride for him, especially on those kind of Florida-like conditions. Storyline number 4 that we are tracking in our SSI Decals Top 5 storylines heading into round 6 is Max Lindquist. He is absolutely trending in the right direction. Things are starting to go right for him. Made some changes, right? Made some changes to his program. He's getting better and better and better. And I think that that's going to culminate. I think we could I'm almost going to say likely see a top 5 out of Max Lindquist this weekend. Storyline number 3 that we are tracking is a guy that was just on this episode, Nick Gennusa. He's on the hunt for a podium. He is trending in the right direction. And like we talked about with him, hole shots are going to be key. These are conditions that he's going to be very familiar with and he's going to feel comfortable on. And he's going to be a rider to watch this weekend. I wouldn't be surprised, and maybe I'll go right into my storyline number 2 here. I wouldn't be surprised if that podium spot comes down to Nick Gennusa and Brandon Hogue. Brandon Hogue being our storyline number 2 that we're watching. He's clearly trending upward. He talked about it was very close to being a podium day for him. Maybe it would have been if not for those unforeseen circumstances in the first moto there that resulted in a 6th. But he is trending in the right direction, and stoked to talk to him ahead of Sunset Ridge because we know he was so good at Sunset Ridge a year ago. He's going to be a guy to watch as well. And then our storyline number 1, I think that this one's an obvious one for this round at Sunset Ridge, is can Chad Wienen get that first win of the season on home soil for him? Obviously, like I said earlier in this episode, we have never seen it take him this long since he's been on a Yamaha to get his first win of the season. So that is something that we're tracking going forward. Can Chad Wienen put it on the top of the box at his home race? If he's going to do it, if he's going to get his first win here anytime soon, you got to believe that it's going to be at Sunset Ridge. We got to run. I know we're running long, but I do quickly want to just touch on the amateur classes. So the Pro-Am class, as we referenced earlier, Kevin Saar gets his first win on American soil in the Pro-Am class. Congrats to him. Joey Chambers goes second in Pro-Am. He was so impressive. He was doing this really sweet wheelie over the single before the big triple jump in the middle of the track. It was an absolute blast to watch. So Joey Chambers earns that second overall in Pro-Am, and Mason Jackson, who's been red hot so far this season, ends up on the podium in third. In Pro Sport, Mason Jackson got the win in that one. Blair Miller came up second, Joey Chambers third. Where was Brett Musig, you ask? He actually got in a slight get off in the second moto after winning his heat. He ends up fourth overall in Pro Sport. A name I don't know I've mentioned yet so far this season, Blaine Thomas got a pair of wins in the C classes. He's from Quincy, Illinois. Shout out to the Dyer family. Cody Houghton, TT specialist, I believe, if I know a little bit about his story. Shout out to him for getting a win in one of the A classes and the college boy class as well. No surprise here, Jeffrey Robbins got a pair of wins in the vet classes. Jason Jackson, another win for him in the Master 50 Plus class. I wonder how he did in fantasy. I'll have to ask him about that. In WMX, it was Kinsey Osborne going 1-1. Andrea Berger, welcome back, Andrea, a former series champion, gets second overall, and Neve Shaw ends up third overall on the box in the WMX class. Natalie Jackson won the women's 15 plus class. The 250 classes were highly competitive this past weekend, with Landon Korn getting a pair of wins, Vincent Dillon winning the other. I know Lillian Plaza got a couple wins in the girls and schoolgirl classes. I think Styles West got a couple wins as well for him. Might have even been 3 overalls for Styles West. He was on the podium all day on Sunday. And last shout out we'll give is Ethan Cornell, I believe, got a pair of wins as well on Sunday. But that's going to do it for our amateur coverage from Ironman. Congrats to all the riders that got overall wins, of course. And that's going to wrap it up for this episode. We crammed so much into this one. It's crazy how much work goes into one of these episodes. I mean, literally locking myself in my office for 2 full days straight from sunup to well past sundown to put these together. So I appreciate everybody that does listen. Major thanks to tonight's guests, Ken Hill, Brandon Hogue, and Nick Gennusa. Thanks to our producer, Dallas Jansen, my brother, for all his hard work. Thanks to Brooke and AMA official Harv Whipple. Thanks to, I already thanked Ken, but thanks to our photographers that help us out, Ken Hill and Tremelin Media House, Logan Tremelin over there. Shout out to those guys. Thanks to all of our donors. You know who you are. We appreciate you so much. Thanks to all of our partners, CST Tires. Go to shop.csttires.com today. Yamaha, thanks to Blue Crew. Welcome back, Valvoline. We're so stoked about that. SSI Decals, DID Racing Chain, Namura Technologies, Bronco ATV and UTV Components, Lauderdale Steel Enterprises and Concrete Supply, the financial advice of the Haymauer Financial Group, DP Brakes, Factory 43, Binky's Forever ATC Museum, and Manscaped. Get 20% off and free shipping with code DiggingDeep20 at manscaped.com. Support all the brands that support our show, and don't forget to use those codes to save. You can find it all on our website, and be sure to click that Rocky Mountain ATVMC banner for all your gear and parts needs and to help us out. And most of all, thanks to you guys for listening. As you know by now, you can find the latest in ATV Fantasy, from season standings to event winners. That can all be found at atvfantasy.com. Shout out to our winners from round 5, Evan C3, Bitten, 3D Racing, Team Orange 849, and 117. Credit to you guys. I got second. I'm feeling almost like a win, but it was a stinger to get that close and not get the win. And you can also find our alternative logo shirts and hoodies. Those are all new. And the rest of our apparel, you can find that at shop.diggingdeep ATVMX.com as well. If you're looking for another easy way to help support us, visit our website and click the Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee buttons. This allows you to set up a one-time or monthly contribution to support our efforts. You can leave us a voicemail. We'd love to play it on the show. That number is 920-569-3519. That's 920-569-3519. Follow the show on social media, Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast, and myself, Cody Jansen, for additional content, coverage, and more fun stuff throughout the 2023 season here. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and more. Wherever you find podcasts, you'll find the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast. All episodes, additional podcast providers, sponsor links, and discount codes, show merchandise, fantasy info, and more can all be found on our website, diggingdeepatvmx.com, so check that out today. Be a friend, tell a friend, please download, subscribe, rate, review, and share. And with that, for Ken Hill, Brandon Hogue, Nick Gennusa, Brooke Jansen, Dallas Jansen, and I'm your host, Cody Jansen. Thanks for listening and making us the most listened to podcast in ATV racing, with more than 216,000 downloads last month in 103 total countries. Until next time, thanks for joining us in Digging Deep with the Stars of ATV Motocross. Things are crashing and burning here at the Digging Deep podcast, much like the Titanic.
Those guys were hauling ass, for real.
I remember watching Doug Gus, I don't know who it was, Steel City, running the same times Friday afternoon as James Stewart was on Sunday back then. It was mental. I've never seen quads go that fast.
Quad leaders are freaking